Everyone, to today's inaugural CCO Review and Appointments Subcommittee meeting. At this time, I would like to invite you all to join me in a moment of silence to honour the victims and families of the Bondi Beach attack, which occurred on Sunday, the 14th of December. I wish to express my deepest condolences to grieving families and first responders. Great, thank you. We'll now turn to our meeting business now. First of all, let's start with the karakia.
Whakatakatāhau ki te uru, whakatakatāhau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E he aka ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora.
Great, thank you. Are there any apologies? I've received one from Mayor Little for early departure at 3 p.m. No, I don't see any. Great. Can we, I move the motion that we accept the apology from Mayor Little for early departure. Do I have a seconder? Tony Randall, Councillor Randall. Yeah. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, please press 2. I declare the motion carried. Conflict of interest declarations. I call on members to declare any conflicts of interest that they may have in relation to the items on the agenda. I see no conflicts. Okay. Confirmation of minutes. As this is the first meeting of the CCO committee, there are no previous minutes to confirm. Items not on the agenda. There are no items not on the agenda. Public participation. We have one public participant. I would now like to invite Felicity Wong to the lectern. Felicity, as you are speaking on behalf of Historic Places Wellington, you have 10 minutes to speak, and that needs to include any time for questions if any members have any. Welcome.
I want to talk about the role of museum trustees, Experience Wellington, and in particular about the Bond Store. I want to talk about their annual report, the quarterly report, and your letter of expectation. And I've just spent a fabulous couple of days with the grandchildren visiting Experience Wellington facilities, which are terrific, though needing money. The Bond Store, of course, is a heritage building, 1892. It was listed by Heritage New Zealand in 1982 as a Category 1 building. And the Wellington Museum and the Bond Store receives 100,000 visitors a year, which is half the number that go to the Wellington Stadium, and it's also half the number that go to the zoo. So it's a really important facility at the Bond Store. Now, in 2023, the Bond Store received an earthquake-prone building certificate. I would just want to say that the Maritime Museum was the genesis of the museum's trust. It was established by the Wellington Harbour Board in 1972, and the critical element was the native timber harbour board rooms at the Bond Store and the associated maritime collection. The museum was set up to provide an enduring use for the Bond Store for future generations. Now, the ownership of the Bond Store, of course, was with Lambton Harbour Management after the Harbour Board. Then it became Wellington Waterfront, and then it was merged with the City Council in 2014, I think. So in terms of ownership, it's on the books of the City Council. Experience Wellington rents all its venues for a global $2 million rental grant. So the council is responsible for the maintenance and ownership of the Bond Store, while the museum's trust is responsible for the fit-out, or so they say. Now, Te Kina, of course, is losing $1.5 million per month, And your letter of expectation, your proposed letter of expectations to Experience Wellington, proposes that they look at all options for their future, including shifting to Takina. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of history, as you'd expect, from Historic Places Wellington. So I have heard this, the Chief Executive, Diana Marsh, recently say to me, the Bond Store, quote, no longer meets our requirements, unquote. Now, the Council does expect CCOs to maintain alignment with the strategic direction of the Council, but just like the City to Sea Bridge, don't get sucked into a process without transparency and without checking on the views of the public about the future of the Bond Store. So it's a big decision that's coming down the track. And I just want to say that this decision is hidden in your agenda papers. The 2024-25 annual report at page 89, which is page 368 of your report in front of you, it notes that Fiako Poniki was working with the Council on the Wellington Museum Strengthening and Exhibition Reimagining Refit projects. And the footnote explains that a bid to the Council's 2028 long-term plan would be made for the purposes of strengthening the museum. That was in the 24-25 annual report. Okay, great. So far, so good. Things have obviously changed in the last 3 months. So in your quarterly report from the Museums Trust, trading as Experience Wellington, trading as Fiako, so if you look at their Q1 report, which is attachment 5, page 343 of your report, it is stated, we are close to confirming a decision from Council regarding Te Whakahaere o Ngā Taonga Tuku Iho Wellington Museum project, now waiting on the proposal to be confirmed through the long-term plan process. In the short term, we need to continue to operate in the Bond Store, allocating investment prudently, etc., and still have a sort of a shop front. But what I want to highlight are the responsibilities of the trustees of Museum Wellington. So the Maritime Museum Trust objects, when it was set up in 1972, were to maintain the Bond Store, if you like. In those days, it was called the Clare Building because it was designed by Frederick de Jersey Clare. So I've been trawling through the archives and there's a deed in 1972 setting out what the museum trustees must do. They did not have the ability to wind themselves up, and they did not have the ability to get rid of the museum, the maritime collection. So in 1995, when the new or existing Museums Trust was established by a new trust deed, the Council's lawyers, Phillips Fox, gave an opinion saying that the only way that the old trust, the old Maritime Museum Trust, could transfer its stuff and responsibilities to the new Museum Trust, i.e. Experience Wellington, was to exactly replicate the objects of the old trust so that there was no breach of trust. So, in association with the establishment of the Museums Trust, in 1995, there was a funding deed and $7 million was put aside, and that became the strengthening project called the Upgrade Project. And the City Council took over from the Maritime Museum Trust the strengthening project. Now, that project was completed in 2015. And during that year, 2015, the Trust entered into a management agreement with the Council for the operation of the attic project works. And those attic project works involved the base isolating of the Bond Store. So it was the first heritage building to be base isolated. So what I would like to say to you now is that it's not entirely clear that it's very easy to shift the Maritime Museum collection away from the Bond Store. I argue that the two are connected intimately, And for the trustees to bury in the footnotes such an important issue, I think raises questions of potential breach of trust. I acknowledge, though, that the push for selling the bond store comes from perhaps some of you. I remember Jenny Conti, who was a previous councillor. This was one of her proposals, to sell the bond store. And I know that, there's this experience of very expensive, blowouts of strengthening the town hall. And I absolutely do not want that. I'm not asking to spend more than $10 million on the bond store. What I'm asking for is that there's decent, transparent information about what the actual problems are with the bond store, and some sort of contestable approach to getting information about how much it would cost. Because talking recently with the person who base isolated it last time in 2015, just 10 years ago, they seemed pretty surprised at the sort of money that's being bandied around now. So I would ask you to ask council staff who are involved in managing the assets to really get better information about the realistic and the most cost-effective way to do this. So many of these projects end up being gold-plated. And just an anecdote, when the City Council took over the Maritime Museum Trust, there were 3 staff. There was a custodian, a curator, and 2 security people who also talked to school parties and showed them around. The staffing has completely blown out now. What we should be doing is right-sizing our city. We should be cost-effectively maintaining what we've got, not embarking on crazy new ideas and white elephants. White elephants. And this building has a remarkable, history and heritage which needs to be understood. So I just please don't go down the city to see a bridge. I'm too tired and poor, but happy to answer questions.
Great, thanks very much, Felicity. I was talking about the strengthening and the requirements, and I was assured by officers that investigation and visits will be made in February or sometime, and I will confirm the time on this, that we will look at the cost, the latest cost of actually strengthening. I think it's just the upper floors, isn't it?
If you could get a couple of different, quotes, that would be really good. Because, how long's a piece of string? I mean, one engineering company will tell you that you need 120 million to strengthen the City to Sea Bridge. And another engineering company would tell you that you need less than 5.
Yep. No, we will certainly do that. And I'll certainly also, that comment that you brought up about the staffing, I'll certainly be asking council officers about who we actually have there now and the cost of these. Thank you. So thank you for that information. Are there any, Felicity, are there any questions here? We're running short of time, but does anyone have any questions for Felicity? No, there appear to be no questions. Thank you, Felicity, again. Thank you.
Thank you, and best wishes for your committee.
Thank you. Great. We will now turn to the presentations from the CCOs. Welcome, all of you. You all have up to 20 minutes, but don't feel that you actually need to use all of it, and leave some time for questions. For those of you here in the gallery, you're welcome to come up and join us at the table when it's your turn to present. First of all, I'd like to welcome Daniel again. Thank you, Daniel. Good to see you again.
We're not on. Now we're on. Can you hear me? Excellent. Tēnā koutou katoa. Sincere apologies from my board chair who had other commitments, so he was unable to make it today, but he does send his well wishes to all of you. Now, so massive congratulations to you all. First time meeting some of you. Please see this as an open invitation to come for a walk with me at Zealandia. It's a little exciting, isn't it? Come for a walk with me at Zealandia. I'd love to show you in person what we do. So what I've got planned for you today, I understand my time limits. I just want to get everyone to the same point in their understanding of what we are, where we've come from, and how we've structured our organisational strategy. We are currently looking at, where are we? I'm going to use this, I think. Is this working? Yep, there we go. So in a global context, we're currently looking at an incredible extinction crisis for biodiversity. So we're losing up to 10,000 species a year off the face of the planet. Many of these are actually undiscovered, so we can't even describe them. In an urban context, we tend to build our cities in a way that excludes nature. It puts a box around it, as you can see in that fantastic picture of Central Park. But what we're doing here in Wellington is not that. We're embracing nature, we're bringing it back into our city. And I'm going to tell you a little bit later about why that's crucially important, and I know many of you already know. So I had the privilege very recently of visiting Oxford University, Imperial College, Trinity College, talking about the advances and changes that we are creating for biodiversity in our city. This is, again, globally unique, globally remarkable, and of international interest. It starts with Zealandia, I think. So even if you go back before that, we have an incredible interest in our community and the environmental outcomes for our city. But Zealandia has this rather unique 500-year vision of restoration. I don't know why it's popping through all the slides there, but it's all right, I can work without them anyway. So our vision goes something like this. Imagine a secret valley 2 kilometres from the CBD of the capital. It's clothed in vigorously regenerating native hardwood forests. And like the forests of old, it rings with the whistles and coughs of the tui, the chimes of the korimako, the chatter of the tieke, and at night you can hear the eerie call of the mopok and the haunting cry of the kiwi. So that was our 500-year vision of restoration. When we started, when we put the fence in place, no one had any concept of how fast this could happen. And so when you read that imagined statement, the statement that tries to enable us to conjure up what this place could look like in the future, we are well along that track. And our entire city could look like this. This could be on our horizon. So for Zealandia, restoration is at the core of what we do. That is first and foremost our goal, our objective. Everything else is secondary to that, and that is what enables us to have the big effect on the city. So the fence that you see up at Zealandia, a little image up there, that was the first of its kind in the world. We've seen that replicated now around 35 around Aotearoa, New Zealand, and you can see a bunch of speckles all over Australia too. And just recently I had Senator Chris Lee from Hawaii visit, and he's looking to put 2 in place in Hawaii now. So this is indeed a model that can be applied globally, and again is of global interest. So this is putting Wellington on the map. So of course, once the fence went in, eradications of predators could happen, and all of a sudden we could bring back species that have been gone from mainland New Zealand for over 100 years. Tieke up there is an example of that, and hihi as well. So inside the sanctuary itself, you can see these species thriving. But for me, one of the most exciting things is what we've seen with some of the more common species that we consider now. So tui dropped to around 30 pair in the 90s, 60 birds. So just think about that from perhaps your morning walk this morning. So what that looks like on a map, here we have some blue dots on our map. So pre-2000, these are the records that we have from about 1900 to the year 2000. Just a few blue dots on the map. By 2010, they're starting to spread. By 2015, they're fairly ubiquitous. And today, they are all over our region. And you can see there's a few places where people aren't walking. That's why there aren't dots there. So this wholesale change in biodiversity is globally unique and something we need to be incredibly proud of as a city. So we are one of the only city, if not the only city, where we are seeing this change in bird biodiversity, this increase in native bird biodiversity. So just to put that in the context of your constituents, the people who voted for you, that's me as a wee lass with my sweet 80s mullet. I reckon by the time I was about 7, I had 20 encounters with tui. And my niece, I reckon, is in the order of 3,000 to 4,000. This is the reversal of the extinction of experience of nature. And this is happening because of bottom-up community-led initiatives. So what that means for us, I'm a researcher as well. I'm an academic at Vic. That's my background, and this is my specialty. So the health and wellbeing benefits of nature. What we see when you experience more nature, you have reduced mental fatigue and stress. 10 minutes in nature is enough to lower your blood pressure, so please come visit. And reduce cardiovascular disease. You're less likely to die from a heart attack if you live in a greener neighbourhood. On the flip side, it improves productivity. So people who have a view of nature increases productivity by about 15%. Mental health and wellbeing improves, social wellbeing improves, and of course, physical activity. So this is worth something to us as a community. The social cohesion and resilience that nature creates for us is hard to put a number on, but we know that predator-free, for example, gets about a $2.30 return on every dollar invested. Zealandia will be sitting probably a bit higher than that. So this is worth real value to our community, and it's very hard to put a number on the social resilience that you get as well. When you know your neighbours, you're likely to be more resilient in a natural disaster, create that sense of community and so on. So it's worth supporting. Now, that's us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our strategy in the few minutes that I've got now. 500 years is difficult to plan for, so we have a 20-year strategy that guides our efforts. This is a generational strategy. So the first generation was all about inside the fence, building up those populations inside the fence, keeping quite a narrow focus. Living with nature, which is our current strategy, is about also thinking about beyond the fence and building up the community around us to level up for nature. Yeah, we've got kaka, we've got tui, but could we have tieke and hihi in our backyards? This is going to require a step change, but I reckon we could do it, and I've got some really cool funding ideas, by the way, too, which I know you'd be pleased to hear. So, each year, of course, we respond to the statement of expectation that come from all of you, and we are very ably able to identify how we contribute to effectively all of the well-beings, all of the strategic outcomes that you are looking for. And Zealandia is quite uniquely placed to do that. We aren't just about what's inside the fence, but what's happening beyond. So, our annual report. Now you can see right to the nuts and bolts. We are financially healthy, not wealthy. That's an important point. We keep a very long view of our finances. We retain working capital that will enable us to survive around 3 months if the bottom dropped out of every revenue market that we have. We are currently developing a 10-year financial strategy, factoring on all the potential changes that we could have, for example, in the tourism market. So our result for the year was good. We achieved around a 200k surplus after depreciation. Unlike some of the other CCOs, we do hold a number of our assets ourselves, so around $5 million worth of those, and so we do see depreciation on our balance sheet. So we're well ahead of budget, as you can see, and that we've managed a surplus before depreciation 10 years in a row now. So we're in a very good position, and we've demonstrated good financial governance. Just thought I'd pop that graph, and you can see over the last 3 to 4 years, we have nearly doubled our revenue. So we are on a good trajectory. We've got really smart leadership in place, good commercial things happening. For example, I've got some corporate membership brochures. I'd appreciate anybody taking them away and sharing them. A new product launch, so that's enabling companies to come alongside us. And so that's a product people can buy, and we've had good wins in that. So we can trial products quickly. We can be responsive to the market and take new opportunities. So in the context of the contribution from Wellington City, the city grant contributes about 18% of our revenue in the last financial year. So for every dollar you invest, we can generate another 4. So it's good leverage. Roughly half our admissions are from the international market. So quite a portion of that, around a third of our revenue, can be attributed to that international travel. So that's where the partnerships with people like Wellington NZ are crucial for us. The happy stuff, numbers are great, so numbers are healthy, but actually we continue to hit above our weight in a conservation context. We carefully pick off the projects that we do to really push the boundaries of what's expected and considered normal in a conservation area. So we're finally at the point where 15 kiwi puku have left Zealandia. That was a real milestone for us, so we're contributing to the national conservation context. But just recently, we held New Zealand's first workshop for arborists. Huge demand for this in terms of how we manage, for example, pine forests for biodiversity. So can we use them? You can see there a picture of a kaka poking his little bill out. Can we actually create nest boxes to promote restoration at the same time as removing what can be a problem species? So it's about reframing the conversation. So yeah, across the board, we had great outcomes. We've had 136,000 visitors, a bit down, but our revenue per person is up, which we're very happy with. This is good. We've got about 15,000 members across the Wellington region and internationally as well. And we've delivered around just over 8,000 education engagements. So I think contributing real value to our city. Cool, so final thing to note, and I'm using up my time, but we were able to open Tanglewood House, Te Piringa Tangata. A beautiful building. We've moved from a tiny little cottage into this fit-for-purpose space that makes our people feel valued and improves productivity. Wellington City contributed $750,000 to that project, and we raised the remainder ourselves from both private donations and Zealandia operations. So a highly successful project. I was asked to comment on Q1. We're ahead of budget, things are looking good. I'm always aiming for at least a break even and aim to achieve better than that, but I don't make promises this early in the year, of course. But yeah, some real wins on the board. So all signals are good for a busy summer. And that's about me. And I did have some ideas on how you guys can help us. So that's but I'm happy to take questions. I know I've taken time.
Great. First of all, we have Puwiri Holden Hahaya, who has a question. Does anyone else have any questions? Please let us know.
Thank you, Danielle. As you know, I'm a big fan already, but just one quick question. How important is the relationship with local iwi, and what is the nature of your relationship with local iwi? How's it going?
Yes, the importance of the relationship is very, very important for our work. We are Te Tiriti o Waitangi partners. We are looking after taonga. We are caring for a part of a catchment which is named in the Taranaki whānui Te Tiriti settlement. So of course, throughout our operations, this is crucially important for us. We did a fish translocation recently, and year on year built the expression of Mātauranga Māori into that. But I think the fundamental project that guides us and supports us is that whole catchment view. So looking at Zealandia, we are right at the headwaters of the Kaiwharawhara. The water flows out. So what happens at Zealandia affects that entire catchment all the way down to the Inter-Islander. That is very much a partnership project. We're working on freshwater planning for that entire catchment at the moment, and that is a beautiful expression of that partnership. So we've got a long way to go in our Te Tiriti o Waitangi partnership journey, but I think we're making some really good steps forward, and that's ever growing, ever thriving.
Next we have Councillor Foon.
I just wanted to ask you, how can we help you?
Okay, thanks, Laurie. So I've got 3 things, and I'm not here with my hat in hand. I'm here to ask you to talk about us, to celebrate what is happening for biodiversity in our region. I've tried to, I'm sure it came through, this is globally unique. It is something to be crucially proud of, and we are hunting as Wellingtonians for something to be proud of. Here it is. Here it is. We love nature. 1 in 4 people in this region have a trap in their backyard. We love this stuff. We're here for it. We've got our harbour there. We've got the green belt and the hills behind us. Talk about this as a success. Celebrate it, because it belongs to all of you as much as anyone. I'd love you to think of us when you hear of opportunities where we can add value. Feedback is much valued. I love taking people for walks, and that would be an opportunity for us to talk about those things. So visit us, hear our stories. It's all about sharing this message of success for our city.
Right. Now a question from Mayor Little. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for your work and your leadership. And it is an amazing taonga, the whole operation. I know when I was up there early this year, you impressed on me the work that you're doing that is at the frontiers of environmental science. I'm just curious to know how the development of relationships around the environmental science IP that you're developing is going, and what impact that is having on revenue, if any, at this point.
Yeah, great question. So we have a Victoria University representative on our board. So research, discovery, science, that is core to who we are. So everything we are doing, we are looking to actively share it on a national and international stage. My visit to Europe recently, so I did have the chance to talk about Wellington and this transition at Oxford, as I said, Imperial and Trinity. These are moments where we can draw attention and create the collaborative relationships, and often in science, as many of you know, it is human to human that you need to be building these sorts of stories. So we don't actively sell our IP, but what it does is it builds our reputation and drives our revenue through other mechanisms. So I have an example of someone who visited from Canada recently because they saw a story of our freshwater restoration online and wanted to come and have a look. So this is a storytelling mechanism that allows us to drive revenue while generating impact as well. So.
Great, thank you. Next we have Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Danielle. Your success is supported by obviously the number of tourists that visit you and its foundation. I was just wondering, in terms of the future, you said your numbers are down a little bit. Do you see yourselves just continuing to be a bit of an anchor sort of destination, and do you see this as you've got concerns about us maintaining, for example, the cruise ship side of things? Yeah,
it's a really good question that we're drilling into at the moment. I'm particularly interested in understanding what our ecological ceiling for Zealandia is. There will be a point where it can take so many visitors, but at some point those visitors start to have an impact on the sanctuary itself, and therefore also impact the experience of spending time in the sanctuary itself. So that's something I'm deeply interested in, and we're poking around in at the moment, and will be a core part of what our financial strategy looks like in the minute. I'm very interested in transitions of other organisations, like Te Puia Springs is a good example, where they've moved from volume to more boutique experiences. And I think there's some opportunities for us to explore in that space that are on my quite near-term horizon. Anything like that, you've got to balance with local access and enjoyment. And we have our memberships there, which we've kept at a very, very low price. We've changed it about $1 in 14 years. So for any of you, it's $67 for an adult to become a member. You get great discounts in the shop and cafe. Please join us. So I think that those sorts of strategies need to be where we're looking in the future. It can't be about volume growth year on year on year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we have a question from Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Actually, the mayor got to it, but having been on one of your walks, you're the only person that could make moss on a tree exciting, so I do highly recommend to all other councillors, genuinely exciting about moss.
It sounds weird, but honestly, it's just amazing. Just come.
Great, thanks very much. Now, Danielle, I have a couple of questions. The last time we met, you were talking about the fence requiring replacement. Do you have any update on that, and have there been any incursions recently?
I do have an update. So we actually had a tree fall on the fence earlier this year for the incursion question, and we did get a rat inside, but our team are really savvy and we deal with those sorts of issues quite rapidly. So I feel pretty, our biosecurity is very good. Our fence, yes, we are going to have to start replacing it. So we've started working on a small section that has some risks of the fence has been built on fill in that small section. So that's a risk of the land falling out from under it. So we're going to use that as our pilot project to trial the approach. Because, of course, when we first did the fence, we had nothing in there to really worry about and protect, but now we do. So the biosecurity is going to be very crucial. For this first tranche, we've leveraged a relationship with GHD, who are providing pro bono alongside at-cost funding. They see an opportunity here as well. That map I showed you of all the fences across Australia and New Zealand, there's major opportunity here. We are the first cab off the rank to start to think about wholesale replacement. So GHD have helped us with the blueprint. We're hoping to start looking at that section next summer. And then over time, over a period, we'll start to replace. And there is some money in the long-term plan for that fence, and please think of us when you're, I realise the challenges that you're under, but this is a major asset for the city that we do need to start. There's no very near-term risk, but this is about us staying on top of it and making sure that we're ahead of that curve. So, yeah.
Great, thanks for that. I have another question about species, particular species that you're actually targeting at either rescuing or making it more conducive for them to settle into Zealandia. And I'm looking at that photo that you had of the kaka. What other species are you looking at for, and what do you actually need to do to get them to settle into Zealandia?
Oh, great question, Ray. Come for a walk again too. So inside Zealandia, it's pretty straightforward. We've probably done the birds that we need to do, but our next opportunity for birds is what happens beyond the fence. So some of them simply can't survive with domestic cats present, for example. So can we actually have the conversation with our community about whether we move towards indoor cats, for example? So this is a long-term thinking, but I reckon we can get there eventually. The other side of things that we're doing, Ray, is freshwater. Massive opportunity for us in freshwater. This is how we're expressing our partnership with Mana Whenua as well. So bringing in fish. We've got no introduced fish in Zealandia, which is, again, pretty well unique in New Zealand. So we are paving the way in terms of how we do freshwater conservation in the country. So yeah, it's pretty, watch the space, there's more coming.
That's excellent. Thanks. And the last question is, and we're all going over time, but I can only blame myself for that. The most prolific native bird, I looked at that map that you had of the tui and how it's expanded. Would the tui now be the most populous native bird in New Zealand?
Probably would be getting pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. That's excellent. That's great to know. Thank you. Thank you very much, and always great to have you here.
Good. Thanks, team.
Right, next we have the Wellington Regional Economic Development Agency, that's Wellington NZ, Mark Oldershaw and Paul Retamanu.
Kia ora, Mr Chair, Your Worship, elected members. Just an apology from Tracy Bridges, who couldn't be here today. I'm here to stand in for her. Thank you.
Very able stand-in. Kia ora tātou team, and good to see everyone again. Thank you for the opportunity for Paul and I just to talk through Wellington NZ, the 2024-25 annual report, having a look at some of our Q1 activity to date, and then I guess possibly more importantly having a broader look at some of our strategies and some of our thinking as we continue to develop. Just in terms of the 24-25 year, and particularly in terms of our key KPIs, the headline KPI is really that first one there. Direct impact of Wellington NZ's activities and interventions was exceeded last year in fairly difficult financial times, to be honest, and bringing over $200 million to the Wellington economy through our activities is something that certainly the team at Wellington NZ is immensely proud of. We have achieved all of our external KPIs, which is encouraging. In terms of some of the more indirect measures that aren't measured on that slide but sit underneath some of those numbers, 2.8 million tourist visitor nights in Wellington over 2024-2025, which was an increase over the previous year, almost $1 billion in domestic visitor spend, and maintaining the highest GDP per capita nationally in Wellington of over $100,000. So they're all good stats that I think we should all be proud of. In terms of Wellington venues, almost 500 performances over the last period, which again was a reasonably significant increase over the previous year. And from business events, Wellington, which does include many events at Tākina as well, those events generated almost $54 million in visitor spend to the Wellington region. So again, encouraging numbers. We are, of course, the Regional Economic Development Agency, and as part of that, we have a leading role in administering and providing many services under the 10-year plan that featured 31 priority initiatives. One of the key ones that Wellington City Council was involved in was the Taiawa Tech Hub, which has been a real success actually for Wellington. So something that was seen as a successful partnership between Wellington City Council, Victoria University and Wellington NZ. Over this last year generated almost $12 million in GDP and supported 127 jobs. So again, we're sort of starting to see the investment paying dividends in terms of those areas. Māori and Pacific businesses is another area of focus for us. Last year we saw a 30% increase in Māori and Pacific businesses that we supported across the Wellington region. In terms of some of the non-financial KPIs, and again, you know, some good numbers here. We do a lot of satisfaction surveys coming through our events and performances that we have. Stakeholder satisfaction across our stakeholder survey, across all activities, 92%. Which again was above our targeted KPIs. Again, for Māori businesses as well, really encouraging to see 92% of stakeholder satisfaction across interaction we did with Māori business. Pacific businesses, slightly smaller catchment, but 100% satisfaction across Pacific businesses again, I think is really encouraging work from the team. Many of you may be familiar with the Wellington NZ scope and strategy, but I appreciate there's a few new faces around the council table. So I thought it was worth just spending a wee bit of time on our scope and strategy areas. Wellington NZ, of course, is the Regional Economic Development Agency, and as a result of that, we are a co-funded agency through Wellington City Council and the Greater Wellington Regional Council. Again, complementary, and it sometimes causes, I think, some quite healthy tensions in terms of the areas that we focus on, city versus region. But we are the city's regional tourism office as well, and again, some really good opportunities that we've made in terms of the tourism side. So essentially our mission to make the Wellington region thrive as a place to live, visit, study, work, do business and invest. And we do that through 4 rocks, so 4 key areas as Wellington NZ that was agreed through Council and through a variety of council strategies in terms of sort of key sectors that we look at. Those 4 rocks being events, the visitor economy, which is the tourism side of what we do, regional economic development, and a special focus on screen and tech innovation as well. And then those 4 rocks are held together through 3 PO. And those 3 PO, I think, again, have been reasonably successful PO for us. Placemaking, which is enhancing Wellington's reputation as New Zealand's creative heart. Jobs for the future, which I think is reasonably self-explanatory, supporting businesses to grow, innovate, and meet future workforce needs. And collaboration and engagement, which is work in partnership to support investment in the region and unlock the opportunities. And I guess that's a reflection that Wellington NZ is better off when we partner, when we don't try to do all things ourselves. And I think, you know, over the last sort of 6 months or so, we've spent quite a bit of time actually in partnering a number of agencies, and happy to go through that in terms of some of our forward thinking around how we best achieve our objectives. We are, of course, at the moment working through our draft letter of expectation with Council. We're looking forward to having that finalised, and frankly, from my perspective, I'm really encouraged to see that the letter of expectation and some of those expectations at a higher strategic level, very much focused around jobs and very much focused around spend. But the fact that we can have it at that higher strategic level allows us to ensure that we can provide possibly a bit more flexible approach to what we're doing in terms of how we present back to you our statement of intent, with ensuring that we meet the needs of councils as well. There's clearly some very operational components in there as well, and we take that up with excitement, particularly with Takina, with our venues, and with the exciting work coming up around the town hall and the now new town hall development as well. We've done a lot of work across the senior management team at Wellington NZ, really looking at our work program and tracking it in a matrix of influence versus economic return to the city, and it's work that continues so that we're very, very clear when we interact with council, when we interact with our stakeholders, we're very clear on what's in that top right-hand corner, the areas where we're able to make the greatest influence in terms of economic impact to the region, but also returns back to the region the greatest return. So as that work develops, and as we continue to work with Wellington City Council, I think the ability to sort of thresh that out more is going to be advantageous. As we look to Q1, the beginning of this year, a lot of things happening, and if we sort of break those down in terms of those strategic PO that we're talking about since we've last met, a number of really exciting activities happening across the Wellington region. Of course, we had celebrated the 20th anniversary of World of Wearable Art. Fantastic event for Wellington and for the wider region. Over the last 20 years, the World of Wearable Art has contributed almost $350 million to the Wellington economy. So that's been a fantastic opportunity, and continues to be a fantastic product for Wellington as well. This year, attracted 64,000 attendees. Which was a fantastic opportunity for not only visitation to Wellington, but for Wellingtonians to engage in what I think is a sensational cultural event. Given the 20 years this year, we put on a few extra activities. Including the Well Wanderer, which we tried, which is a hop-on, hop-off bus for visitors to explore the compact nature of our city. It was a great return for the retail sector, hospitality sector, and many of our core attractions as well. I do note our film and screen sector is also really firing at the moment. There's a number of significant screen productions in train. Black Sheep's a dog show, Secrets at Red Rocks. Those three productions alone will contribute $25 million to the regional economy and employ over 400 people. I do note also a growing area for Wellington in terms of the placemaking side of things is the gaming industry. We recently held at Takina the New Zealand Game Industry Conference, huge success. A 40% growth in gaming revenues across the New Zealand gaming sector, with 34% of gaming businesses based here in Wellington. So that's a really good opportunity for us to tap into that tech strategy work that we are soon to present back to Wellington City Council as well. Collaboration engagement, I'll just touch on a couple of boost opportunities, tourism boost and events boost launched by the government. Wellington did incredibly well out of that. The $10 million events boost, we had 22 applications from the Wellington region. And we were overrepresented in terms of those successful events, and some of those announcements are still to come. In the $40 million major events fund, one of those announcements was the Ultra Musica Festival in April next year. That's a major coup for Wellington to attract that. Again, unique to Australasia, and the vibe in the city around that is significant. And through the Tourism Boost Fund, Wellington NZ was successful in 3 consortium for that fund as well. So that will ensure that we use Wellington as a major hop-on, hop-off port for tourism activity over the current period as well. Just in terms of coming up, a really stacked summer of events, I'm pleased to say, and events starting earlier in the new year. We put the slide together assuming we were presenting last week, but many of you would have been engaged in a fantastic weekend last weekend with Avatar, with Black Caps in town, with Christmas Spectaculars, Handel's Messiah. We had 2 cruise ships in town as well. So if you couldn't find anything to do in Wellington last weekend, then you're a tough audience. Again, I think our focus for events, and again we've talked about this a wee bit with this team as well, is to focus on a larger number of smaller events for Wellington. We do have difficulty, it's not impossible, but we do have difficulty attracting significant larger events from an economic perspective to Wellington. But if we can start to attract the likes of, and again if we're looking performance venues, Nick Cave's a classic example, right? We can have 2 or 3 nights at TSB with someone like Nick Cave. It's a New Zealand exclusive. It really hits a diverse market, and if we can spread those events over the calendar year, that's very much where our strategy lies. The other thing, just before I take any questions, is our ability to partner up, and it's something that we're really working hard on now in terms of ensuring that we're working with the right people. The Chamber of Commerce, I think, is an obvious partner for us, and I think those relationships, I suspect haven't been as strong as they could have been over years, but we're working very closely with the Chamber now. The Chamber, of course, have got a new chief executive, and there's a lot of opportunities, I think, for us, particularly in the advocacy space, to do that. Industry, iwi, I think are also showing a growing optimism for Wellington as well. Can I just say before I finish, can I thank Council for your ongoing support of events in Wellington and NZ, but in particular can I thank Council officials, Matt, Anna, Jamie and the team for your ongoing support as well. It's been a very easy relationship, and we're all doing it for the same reasons, I think, is to make Wellington a stronger place and a place to thrive, live and do business. Kia ora.
Great, thanks very much, Mark. Very impressive and yeah, well done. We have a list of questions here, and I'll ask a question at the end of that as well. First of all, Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Keep it up. I have to go to Auckland for 3 things at the start of next year, so the sooner you can start bringing the Linkin Parks Deftones and things down here, the happier I'll be. There's heaps
Give me a list, Ben.
Send you a list.
Yeah.
There's heaps of doomism around homegrown leaving, and obviously Unity's a really big coup. So I just was wondering if you could talk us a bit through how quickly were you able to get Unity together? How long were you working on it? Just a bit of, because it's a fantastic alternative that you've put together.
Yeah. Look, it came about, and to be fair, we've been working on it for some time, and of course we've had high tide on the waterfront as well. This year, so again, that was a sellout music festival, 8,000 people, so slightly smaller than what Ultra is going to be. It's probably fair to say that Ultra wouldn't have existed without the support of the government's $40 million a major events boost, but through the promotion networks that we've got through some of the ticketing agency contacts we've got, we were able to bring that to Wellington. And again, I really say don't underestimate the value that I think this is going to bring to Wellington, and over potentially many years as well. Paul can probably talk from an operator's perspective as well in terms of.
Yeah, look, at Ultra, there is some really good data there. I mean, it's in 30 countries around the world. What they find is a 30% of people travel around the world to go to this. That's international visitation, which is absolutely fantastic. That's 25,000. Obviously, this year, 2026, they're looking at just doing the smaller version of the 5 stages, 4 stages, and then obviously from 27 onwards they'll be going to the full 7. So also what the average spend is a lot greater than homegrown. So because they're international travellers, basically obviously bigger pockets to spend. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes after April 10, just to get the data back to be able to actually reflect on it and see what it does bring.
Great, thanks very much. Next we have Councillor Foon. Thank you.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you for the briefing today, very encouraging. Just with Tākina, can you just give a really brief overview on how that's tracking in terms of putting back into the city as well as filling up with events? Yeah. Look,
from a conference perspective, we've got a very strong pipeline of conferences that we've had over the last quarter and heading into 2026. Government's starting to pick up as well, and they are an important client of us as well as international conferences. Next week we open Michelangelo exhibition as well, which is a significant event, and speaking to the promoters of that, the ticket sales for that exhibition are really strong. We've got the ability to potentially extend that should we need to, and then we head into a series of other exhibitions as well. So look, we are looking at a variety of strategies, how we continue to meet commercial requirements of that building. It will sit fair and square in our letter of expectations from council, as it should. But I think we're confident and comfortable in terms of its trajectory. And look, the other thing is these conference headers take time to establish, right? We've seen that in Christchurch. I'm sure we'll see that in Auckland as well in terms of its ability. But I think we are starting to see the fruits of a lot of collective labour.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Abdurrahman.
Cool, thank you. There was a recent business summit in Auckland. It was an ethnic business summit, and that summit, it was actually mentioned that a new report revealed that ethnic business contributed $87 billion to New Zealand economy in 2023, compared to $63 billion in 2021. And the CEO of Marvin Singham, the chief executive of Ministry of Ethnic Community, said that additional $10 billion untapped potential was waiting to be unlocked. So my question to you is, what your relationship looks like with the ethnic communities, the engagement and empowering the community and working with them when the potential is huge. When I look at some of the slides, maybe you didn't mention it in this slide, so I just wanted, what is the strategy in the future and going forward?
Yeah, no, look, a really good question, and acknowledge the significant growth in ethnic businesses as well. Look, I mean, essentially from a business growth perspective in Wellington, they are very much a part of our wider picture, but could continue to be more. And look, Councillor, if there's an opportunity for us to have a conversation outside of this in terms of where those connections, I know Merv I'm very happy to pick those up as well.
Great, thanks very much. I had 3 questions, but Councillor Foon actually asked one of them about Takina. The 2 questions I have now is, under the heading Employment Engagement, it dropped down from a target of 78% to 72%. Is there any reason for that? Can you sort of see? Or
sorry, what
the employment engagement?
Oh, employee engagement.
Sorry.
It was actually has increased from the previous years. Our KPI, I think, was 78% from memory, and I think we achieved 76%, which I think from memory was and we've just done a recent pulse survey in house, and we've increased that further. So that's work that we continue to do, Councillor, but we are starting to see some pretty significant improvements across a lot of our internal metrics at Wellington NZ as well. And look, I think that's around. Some of it's our storytelling, but some of it's ensuring that we've got the right resources in the right places. Some of that's also, I think, ensuring that as a collective, we're very clear on what our vision and destination needs to be.
Yep, great, thanks. And the last question is that you mentioned about how gaming is actually becoming a lot bigger in Wellington. Are there any opportunities for having any gaming conferences in Wellington?
Yeah, plenty. I mean, as I said, we had the New Zealand Gaming Conference at Takina this year, which was a huge event off the back of Avatar premiere over the weekend. We had a number of gaming global leaders from America, the UK, Australia, over here meeting with the gaming sector. Many of them, we held a creative tech conference at Massey University on Monday night, actually, specifically around gaming. So, gaming's becoming an increasingly important focus for us, not only Wellington NZ, not only CHQ, but I think Wellington as well. And as we said, 34% of the gaming sector lives and breathes in Wellington. That's a really good opportunity for us.
Excellent, that's great. Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for coming in, and Paul. Always good to see both of you, so thanks again. Next, we have the Basin Reserve Trust, and I'd like to welcome Blair Duncan and Nadine Coulter.
Good. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for having us, and apologies from Todd Bryant, who can't be here today. So you've got myself, who's the General Manager of Facilities, and Nadine Coulter, who's General Manager of Finance. It was lovely to see you all a few months ago when you did the tour of the basin. Many familiar faces, and welcome to those new councillors who have been appointed. So just on behalf of, I suppose, Cricket Wellington, we manage the Basin Reserve under the Trust, the Basin Reserve Trust, who of course manages it as a CCO, as a council-controlled asset owned by the council. And we really appreciate the help and support of the council over the last number of years, particularly getting through the master plan, which has just seen the facility since 2014, when it was in desperate need of some repairs, really get that maintenance. And I think to any of you that saw it on the TV or saw some pictures or were there at the ground last week, you just saw how beautiful it was with cricket being played in the sun. The pahurakawas were in bloom. There was just some really great imagery of the ground, which was really cool to see, and it just makes you feel really special to be a part of that and to see what a great asset it is for the community and for Wellington. Shame it didn't go any longer. It was a beautiful Saturday, and all of my friends that I spoke to were saying that they were going to be there, but I guess that's just the nature of Test cricket, and we'll work with New Zealand cricket in terms of the days in which they start and see if we can just edge it the start date a little bit later in the week, so we really get the most out of those key facilities and those key tests when we have them. And also appreciate the support, maintaining the basin as a community venue, which is really important to us, and also as a public green space and a public thoroughfare as well, which is also really important to the city and to Wellingtonians. Start off with a few of the highlights from last year, and one of them is just the ongoing work in terms of the capital projects as part of the master plan. Having the new LED screen in just enables us to keep track with the other grounds around the country and keep it as a top venue, as well as offering a bit of a platform for us to expand into other community events, which we have got in the pipeline and are looking forward to hosting more of in the coming years. International cricket, so last year we hosted England, and similar to this year, it went 3 days. The English crowds do travel, and there was a great atmosphere at the basin last year when we held England, even though it was only for those 3 days. Also had Sri Lanka come, and the White Ferns played against Australia in a couple of games as well, which was great. So yeah, really great calendar for us last year in terms of international cricket at the basin. Domestically was also really fantastic. We had a lot of great domestic cricket, including the Super Smash finals, and the Blaze were crowned champions again in that space, which was really great to see. So that starts for us again later this month, sort of in 12 days that season kicks off, and we're really excited about what that's going to bring to Wellington over that key summer period. Also hosted the rest of the domestic in terms of the Ford Trophy, the HBJ and the Plunket Shield. And then we had our men's premier finals at the basin last year for the first time since 2019, which was great, and hosted the women's club finals at the basin as well for the first time ever, which was really good. So a really key thing for us to have it not just as a domestic and an international facility, but to have it as a community facility as well, and to host some of that community cricket as well as other sports. Deliver the D Sports event during the Plunket Shield, which was great to be a part of. We had the Killy Kitty at the basin again, which had 1,500 people, and it was a great cultural event. I just had a planning meeting for that this morning, and that's looking good for this year coming up as well. So really excited to deliver that again for that community. And then had a number of junior football games on. In 2024, missed that opportunity last year with this year with the renovation, but really excited to have that back next year. And we've also added a little bit of junior cricket to the basin as well this year for the first time, which has been really great to see juniors out there playing cricket in the sun at such a great space. We opened the Hall of Fame and the New Zealand Cricket Museum as well as renaming the long room to the Trish McKelvey Lounge in recognition of her contribution to the game, which was great to see, and another great event. And that is perfectly captured by a bit of a slideshow we've got there. So the new scoreboard up the top, Killy Kitty on the right, the Blazers champions, and then the D Sport Festival down that bottom right-hand corner. The Trish McKelvey Lounge top left there, junior football at the basin top right, the Pearce Cup final, which is the top of community cricket for men on the bottom left there, and then the Black Caps vs Sri Lanka ODI that took place in a very bitter, cold day, which probably worked in our advantage against the Sri Lankans. White Ferns vs Australia top left, the girls' premier final. Top right, Blundell getting 100, which was great to see a local player succeed on the international stage like that, and then the opening of the Hall of Fame, NZ Cricket Hall of Fame in the museum, which was another great occasion. In terms of our performance measures that were set, was a relatively good year in 24-25. Ticket events were up 3, and that was just down to hosting the Super Smash finals and the semi-finals. Practice days were up slightly, which is just down to a little bit of good weather, and enabled the teams to practice there a lot more. And then the function days were relatively close to the target, which was good to see after a pretty tough commercial year for a lot of the different funders in those function spaces. In terms of the performance measures, the number of attendees was down. Relatively reasonably. That was just due to the England test only going for 3 days, and also losing the Bears at the basin as well. The revenue reflects that loss of Bears at the basin too, which was quite a key part of our calendar. Unfortunately, again, They've cancelled it again this year, so it was supposed to be in November. We moved it forward to February to try to get some better weather and have a more consistent venue, and we just got notice sort of late last week that they'd cancelled that, which was a real shame. We've replaced it with a couple of corporate games just to try to increase the usage and try to get back a little bit on that revenue, but we've just got a bit of thinking to do long term and engaging with some of the partners and some of the other CCOs around what events we can bring and how can we get a major event back there that's a little bit more reliable year in, year out.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry. Kia ora koutou. In relation to the financial statements, just a point of note before I dig into them. The previous person that was in charge of finance at the Basin Reserve, he actually had a stroke at the end of 2024. So we had an interim accountant, a contractor, that came in and did the budget. But unfortunately, he didn't have the history and he had no access to the previous person to get any handover. So some of our budgeted figures weren't quite correct, mainly more in the balance sheet and the cash flow. So cash and liabilities were grossly overstated in the budget by 300 grand each. So when I came on board, I took over the accounts in June 2025. So we uncovered that it was a mistake, but we couldn't fix them because they'd already gone through into your documents. So in terms of looking at the income and expenses, the budget was actually done reasonably well in that area, which was comforting. We did have variances on both sides, but they were largely down to turf renewal. Got pulled forward. We had some problems on the ground with weed and some other aspects of the ground, so it got pulled forward to be renewed earlier than what we had in the budget or in the plan. And so that accounted for 185,000, and then we also had some money on the asset renewal plan that the council kindly let us put towards the new LED screen. We funded the purchase of the screen ourselves. We sourced 450,000, 300,000 kindly from the Wellington Cricket Trust, and another 150,000 that we sourced from the Class 4 gaming. We got 50,000 from 3 of gaming organisations, and then we funded the LED screen totaled 504,000, so we funded the other 54,000 ourselves. But the council, when the screen was pulled into the new screen is a lot heavier and it had different specifications, and the old screen was obviously about 15 years old, I believe. So it needed strengthening, and we needed to strengthen and do a few other modifications to the Don Neely surround. So council gave us some more money for that. So obviously the turf renewal funding and the Don Neely screen funding both came in through revenue, and then it also came out netted off in expenses. Our extraordinary revenue is the contribution to the new screen. On one side, it gets capitalised as an asset and we will depreciate it over its useful life, but it also has to go through the profit and loss, so therefore inflating it, but we've dropped it as extraordinary revenue to distinguish it apart from the normal funding that we receive. Our closing cash was sitting at 128,000, which is not a lot of cash with other asset renewal plans and things that we have coming up, and we're very conscious of that. So we are in a state now where we have to look for additional funding in order to do other projects that we have that we need to do in order to get international fixtures at the basin. We want to remain a Tier 1 ground, but with that, at the moment, we have a slight problem with our southern broadcasting tower. We have to put up scaffolding every year, and the way the broadcasting funding has been with New Zealand Cricket, they will be losing some of those funding rights. And in the past, they've paid for our scaffolding, but we have to pay for it going forward. So that's a slight problem for us, in conjunction with the fact that when we have broadcasters sitting in the scaffolding, if the winds get above 100 kilometres an hour, they can no longer broadcast from that end of the ground, which obviously becomes a problem if we've got teams here such as India who we want to secure for next year. If you're only broadcasting from one end of the wicket, that does become a problem. So we like other CCOs here, we are asset-rich, cash poor, if you like, with lots of things that we want to do, but we have to get our thinking caps on how we're going to secure funding going forward for these projects. Next one. So our challenges are the escalating event delivery costs. It is hard for us when we put on a test and it only goes 3 days. Some of the funding that we get from, say, our black and gold, the people that do the hospitality and have the food trucks, events there, we get a percentage of their revenue. If we have no cricket on, and particularly over a weekend, then we don't get that rebate, and that has affected us in this year. Not by a lot, but it's, every cent, like I guess everybody here, every dollar and cent counts for us. Delivery costs, everything is going up, cost of living, and it does make budgeting hard. And New Zealand Cricket also push for their costs. We have to compete against other venues that are newer. Bay Oval have really good broadcasting, other facilities compared to us, so they're trying to sneak up, but we still try to rely on, we are the home of cricket. We do have an iconic ground. We have a beautiful ground. People love coming to the basin, but we have to, make sure that we can deliver the facilities to remain competitive and make sure that teams want to come and play here. Rising operational overheads, I think every month this year, in this new financial year, we've had, been told something's going up. We've got rates increases, power, rubbish has just gone up, cleaning costs have gone up, everything is going up. So it does continue to place pressure. We have to make sure, our security is another one that's just gone up. We still have to keep these, keep it operationally going and make sure that people have, good health and safety at games, getting in and out of the venue. We are tight with a road going right round it, and, that could be changing in a few years to have a state highway going right next to us. So, we are in a unique position in terms of running events, but we've also got, other unique opportunities in that too, in order to get other funding to promote and help build our facilities. So, there are opportunities as well as constraints with the basin.
Yeah, thank you, Nadine. We touched on it a little bit, but we're really keen to try to diversify the offerings that we have at the basin. We're working really hard to get a second domestic venue in Wellington, in and around Wellington, which will just take some of the pressure off. The basin's the most used domestic cricket ground in the country, and adding to that the international fixtures, it just means that we really struggle to get a good window to be able to hold anything other than cricket there. So that's a really key strategy for us over the next couple of years to work into that space, which will just allow us to diversify income streams and have it as more of a community venue. Nadine's touched on the highly competitive market, but it is a real concern. There's 2 India Test matches next year. That's going to be a really massive thing for us if we do and or don't get it. So the bid's in at the moment, or just about to be in, and we'll find out shortly in terms of what that calendar looks like. But it's a really competitive market out there, so we just need to make sure that we continue to evolve the ground and make sure it can stage the games and make sure it's a great experience for fans, for players, for everyone that's involved. And then that just comes into, I suppose, the access for capital investment as well. So a couple of things in the pipeline, as you mentioned, Nadine, and there's a couple of irons that we've got in the fire as well, just to make sure that we can try to get as much income into the ground and develop it as best we can. In terms of this year, to date, we're on track. Functions are a little bit low. Obviously, the test, as we've talked about, that does impact things. But all in all, I think we've had a really good start to the year, and we're looking forward to continuing that through and having a really strong year and a really good next few years as well, depending on how those tests and those projects go. But yeah, we're really confident with where we're at and really happy with where we're at with the ground. So a few little tweaks, and we think we'll remain as that top tier ground in a community event facility. Very good. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Well, I was hoping actually to cut some time off you guys, but we've gone pretty deep, so apologies. Just happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks. Thanks very much. First of all, we have Councillor Foon.
Yes, just sorry to hear about your person, but I just wondered if there were systems now in place to future-proof access to materials for others.
Previously, he was an external person,
Yep.
and so I'm the GM of Finance of Cricket Wellington, and so I also have do the Basin Reserve Trust as well. So that works really well across the board because Cricket Wellington and BRT try to work together.
Yeah.
You know, where at the moment Cricket Wellington has been negotiating with New Zealand Cricket to put up the rate charge per day at the basin, and that money gets fed through to the basin. So, and the trustees and the board of each side are completely separate. So there's no crossover and financial conflicts or anything like that. You know, we are a team at the end of the day. So yes, we do. We're all online. The previous accountant was a little bit more paper-based, so that made it very difficult too. The audit was extremely hard. I started 1 week and had a year end to do, but we managed, and the auditors are really pleased with the second year round because everything's online. And, we've run Xero and, other stuff. Everything's, uploaded now, so that won't happen again.
Great, just great to make sure those systems are future-proof for you all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Councillor Compton.
Thanks. Thank you. With regards to the State Highway 1 project that will be scooching around you, did you guys make a submission on the proposal, particularly with the pedestrian access?
Yes, we did, yeah. We had the Whakahaere come in to meet with us. Councillor Osborne was there. We had Wellington NZ there to support us, and a number of other interested stakeholders. So we presented to them in terms of our issues, particularly around the access, around the safe egress into and out of the ground, egress and ingress around the ground, and just the concerns particularly around that northern entrance, which is really important for us. If you've ever been to the basin on a match day, that's kind of where we host all the vendors. That's where punters get in safely and leave safely, and yeah, a real big concern for us. So we had Whakahaere back on the first day of the test just to show them around how it all works and how it flows on event days as well. So yeah, confident that we've made a positive start in that direction to ensure that it remains an easy and a safe venue moving forward.
Just to add to Blair's comment, when we spoke with Whakahaere, we're trying to future-proof as well. So we're not looking at the BRT as it is now. We're looking at it to the future to host a smaller concert. The likes of, we had Robbie Williams, those smaller concerts. In particular, if we can get a southern broadcast tower, we could actually switch our whole, when Robbie Williams came and did his concert, his stage, they have to have backstage. So his stage was actually in front of the stands, so people couldn't sit in the stands, so we're on the other side. But with our plans, if we do a southern broadcast tower, he can, if it was him, the stage could be at that end, and we could, we could host up to 20,000 people. Tiana mentioned from Wellington NZ. So we're not talking to Whakahaere just to say, we could have up to 8,000 to 10,000 people at a cricket match. We're talking about, we want safe egress for 20,000 people to leave, because it's all very well to get it set up for 10,000 and then find that, there are lots of concerts, or, with the Mark who talked before, we're another venue, another outdoor venue for that. We aren't just a cricket facility. So So we're hopeful that we can work with them and they can help, if that is something that goes through with the government, that they can help to upgrade our facility so that we can meet our current requirements, but also make it better. Okay.
Great, thank you. And now we have Councillor Osborne.
Thank you. Kia ora, Blair and Nadine. Actually, just following on from your comments, really, Nadine, I was just going to ask, what are the sort of the main impediments to the Basin Reserve being able to deliver more non-cricket community events?
I think, as Nadine mentioned, the Southern broadcast is a really key one, particularly for concerts and for the backstage. The other thing is, any nighttime events, there's not great lighting there, so lights potentially is another one that could ensure the safety of spectators and punters, and just in a better venue and more adaptable in terms of different times, etc., to host. There's the potentially, depending on what happened, there's the egress, so the different entrance points that we need to open up. The ground was designed, 50, 100 years ago, so accessibility is also a really big one in terms of getting people around. I'm not sure if you've ever got up to the top of the RA Advanced stand, but I don't think I've seen anybody to get up there without being panting for a couple of minutes once they've finished. So, how do we just make the ground a little bit more accessible so people can use it as well when we host in those spaces?
Yeah, we have to be really smart though, because we do, we are a venue for international cricket, so we can't have 10,000 people on the ground a week before a test match. So we have to be really clever in the windows of opportunity that we have, and I think we have to start talking to the other entities that, could bring concerts or could bring other events and get in a lot earlier so that our little window can be utilised perhaps a little bit more before as an alternative to the TSB, or maybe we can host two things. They could come to the Basin on the Saturday and TSB on the Sunday. I don't know, but there's opportunity there, but we have to get smarter about our windows.
Great, thank you. I have a few questions I'd like to ask as well. Regarding the Bears of the Basin, did they give you any indication of why they cancelled? I recall last year they said that they had low pre-sales tickets. Is that the same reason this time?
Yeah, it was just along the same lines. I think they pulled the pin early to ensure that they could get out of whatever arrangements they did have, or not have to get into too much of the investment. But yeah, it was relatively short notice in terms of the period that they gave us to let us know, but it was along the same lines as last year.
Okay, great, thanks. And the second question is a similar question here, is that is it feasible to have school events like school sports days and things at the Basin, or would they damage the pitch too much?
No, it's perfectly feasible to have those sorts of things. We have junior football, we've got junior cricket happening this year. Basin used to be used for all sorts of things, athletics back in the day, wrestling. I believe it was also a diving event too. So it's certainly a very flexible ground. I think we've probably swung a little bit too far in terms of cricket, but we're definitely open to hosting that, and we've got a good relationship with College Port Wellington, so we can explore some opportunities in that space.
This is great. I used to remember it being my old school sports day over at the Basin, so very memorable. Thank you. And the third question is, you're talking about looking at other types of funding. Have you considered looking at other businesses, private businesses, and sponsoring either something in the Basin, or even sponsoring a sport or a function there?
Yeah, we do have several sponsors that sponsor different competitions that we've got at the moment. In terms of other sports, great idea. We've got a primary sponsor in cello at the moment, but we're also looking at different sponsorship around, say, areas on the RA Advanced stand, or, as Nadine mentioned, trying to get the Southern Broadcast Complex sponsored, or the scaffolding sponsored. So yeah, certainly exploring those options as well.
Yes, that's great. Okay, thanks. Are there any more questions? No? Okay. Now, I'd just like to say that I really enjoyed my visit down around the Basin that time, so really appreciate it. I learned a lot about what happens here, so thank you very much.
Happy to have you anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Yep, okay. Right, now we have the Wellington Cable Car Limited. We have Tansy. Thank you.
We're still on this one?
And Fergus online.
We on? Kia ora koutou. Nice to see you all. Congratulations on all your appointments to council and committee. It's nice to be working with you again for another triennium. Fergus, are you there, Fergus?
Yes, kia ora. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Kia ora. I'd just like to make a couple of opening comments. First of all, apologies for not being able to be with you all today. Unfortunately, I had a prior commitment in Rotorua, so I'm sitting up here wishing I was in Wellington. I think the most important thing about the cable car is it is a financially strong and resilient business. It is making money. This year it's been a difficult year, but we have turned around $650,000 surplus with providing over 920,000 trips. So I think you can see that we are a resilient business, and Tansy will go into some more details around that. That comes with also the thank you to Council for your support in the long-term plan to provide us with some funds to do our seismic work around our bridges, and that work is actually progressing really well at the moment. The other comment I'd like to make is about our staff, and I think you can all be very proud of the dedicated team that who are well led and who provide the wonderful service which Wellington Cable Car does provide. Tansy and her team do a great job, and Tansy in particular has led an initiative and been the chair of our New Zealand Cruise Association in going to battle to try to fight back and get more cruise businesses back to Wellington. And hopefully we might start seeing some results of that maybe as early as 28, 29. But it has had an impact, but although it has impacted us, we have still remained in a profitable situation. So I'll hand over to Tansy, who'll provide you with some more details.
Thanks, Fergus. And look, you didn't even take any time. We're still on 0. Oh, there we go. It's all for me. Great. So yeah, looking forward to sharing some of our FY25 results with you and a snapshot of Q1. So just firstly, which way shall I point this? Back at you? Oh, yeah, cool. And I'll go through a couple of things in a bit more detail just for some of the newer faces, just to show what we do at the cable car. We're not just going up and down the hill all day, although we do go up and down the hill all day, but we're a bit broader than that. Yeah. So this is a snapshot of the last 10 years. So you see the best year we had was that FY19 year. We can ignore the big horrible COVID drop. And then we came back really strongly as those air borders and the maritime borders opened. And then, of course, we had our best year ever in FY24. We had over 200,000 cruise passengers in Wellington. We had FIFA. We had lots of major events, so a really, really successful year for us. FY25, slightly below target, so we're back down to still a decent figure, 921,000, but that's quite reflective, of course, of that 20% drop-off in the cruise business. So I think we probably won't see ourselves back over 1 million passengers until that cruise sector recovers, and that's looking to be FY28, FY29 at this stage before it's back where it was. And of course, international visitor arrivals are still only about 87% of pre-COVID numbers. So we'll be looking forward to that going back up again and, you know, the China market coming back, etc. A snapshot of those market segments. So the people coming to the cable car, really everything in green is a tourist. Yeah, so the dark green is people paying full price, and you've got family groups, wholesale groups who are tour operators selling tickets to tourists. And then probably even a portion of that super gold is tourism as well, because they're coming down from other cities and using their gold card. So yeah, really 75% of the business is tourism, and about 25% is our local commuters. So highlights. So our performance measures for the year, as I mentioned, we didn't quite reach our passenger number targets and consequently revenue, but I'm pretty happy to be within 10% of a target. When you're trying to, you know, predict a passenger number target within the hundreds of thousands, it's pretty hard. So within 10% to me is pretty good. And we have things like, I've said it before, a rainy day. A sunny day can mean 1,500 more passengers, so there's a lot there. And we were probably a little bit I predicted the cruise numbers quite accurately and didn't actually take into account the fact that, gosh, there's a big swell in the harbour and they can't get alongside, and all of a sudden you don't see 5,000 passengers. So I learnt my lesson there. But everything else is achieved, and really happy with the waste diversion target, which has smashed that. We set that target, and then we obviously introduced organic bins and composting and stuff, and we've managed to average about 54% of waste diverted from landfill. So very happy with that. And as Fergus said, made a pretty healthy profit as well for the year. So going through some of the highlights, the rest of the highlights, so just again for the new faces, we have a one-page plan that has 5 strategic focus areas. So all the work that we do falls into one of these pillars, and that includes everything that comes from you, from the letter of expectations and all of the projects that you ask us to look at. We sort of slot them into one of these pillars, so it helps just to be able to show the highlights under these pillars. First one, Care for our taonga, this is all about kaitiakitanga. So this is making sure that we keep the cable car and its rolling stock going for the next 100 years and beyond, so making sure it's in really good condition and that it's safe and operating well. Most of this work takes place during our annual maintenance shutdown, which will be between 1 to 3 weeks during July and August every year. So we do things like change the bogies, and this is last year's one, and last year we replaced that thing there, $15,000 electric motor bearing, replace things like that on the motor. This pillar is also where we look at our carbon reduction figures, and we're really happy that from our baseline year we've reduced our carbon emissions by 27%, and we are trying to make our way down towards that 57% target by 2030. Some of the ways to reduce it from here on in aren't as obvious as some of the things that we have done, like replacing diesel vans with electric vehicles and the like, but we work with council teams and stuff to see whatever we can be doing in this space. That's our waste diversion. And of course, the other thing we've been doing in the last year is just starting those initial conversations with Doppelmayr and Garaventa around the eventual replacement of the cable cars, which is coming. They won't look like that though, that's just AI. The other big part of this pillar is, of course, our seismic work program. So sorry, I keep on saying for the new people, but for the new faces, so just a little bit more detail for you. So we've done a lot of work on our tunnels in the last few years. We've now completed everything that we can within our control for the Lambton terminal. So that included things like strengthening the double T floors and all those crazy poles that hang from the ceiling. So everything that we can do within our control has now been done in Lambton, which is great. We're obviously still surrounded by lots of other buildings with unknown seismic resilience, but we're pretty happy, we're pretty safe down there. The next big thing for us then is the bridge work. So over the FY25 year we did a lot of assessments, and we've now got a really good table of works, program of works. I have literally thousands of pages of documents if anyone wants to read any of it, but just a high level, we've got a sort of high level swim lanes of just what the key next steps are with the bridges, which has included things like geotechnical work down at Salamanca to see what's there. And we're getting on with that in the next, they'll be done by the next 3 to 5 years. And of course, thank you again so much for that LTP funding that supports that work. In this space, always lots of fun in this space. We're hosting sunrise breakfast, doing live crosses that earned about $1 million in equivalent advertising value. So just the amount of time that we were on TV if we'd had to purchase that space. So that was great. And thanks, I think they've gone to party, but Wellington NZ obviously always passing those opportunities on to us. We had Jono and Ben on their tour with us. All sorts of other fun things, similar to supercharging our customer experience, which is all about surprise and delight and going the extra mile for our customers. So we've done a lot in the accessibility space. We did a price review, which included offering concession rates as it always should have been, for community services card holders and the like, and actually free of charge travel for companion carers who are travelling with people. Our digital strategy is really hitting its... that purple thing. We put this through this was a project in FY24 to create a digital strategy so that we were really aware of what content we were putting out to who, on what channel, and then that sort of continual test and learn to see what works best on what channel. So we've been having a lot of fun with that. And of course, lots of fun with the kids' days, and of course, no one needs to be told about the dogs of the cable car calendar. Unfortunately, there's no council stars in it this year, which is a shame, but sales are still going well. No. And I think Fergus is over the top of it, but yeah, pleased to be sort of acknowledged in this area with a TripAdvisor's Traveller's Choice Award in 2025. Over time, cool. Partnerships are really important for us at the cable car. We're a little business, but we need a lot of friends. We have a lot of friends at Wellington NZ, of course. We partner with them on anything from the Advent calendar to Faultline Ultra to any opportunity for Mills and media broadcast work. They're good friends. Also, all of our CCO partners, so whether that's working on shared products together or just supporting a cause, like Zealandia was going for Kiwi for Bird of the Year, so whatever we can do to help our CCO partners. We've also got quite a few commercial partners, so we work with East by West Ferries, we do stuff with Weta Workshop, anything to do with Tākina and the exhibitions that are on there, we will support, we'll steal a photo box, whatever we can take, we will, to showcase it to the, 921,000 people who are coming through the cable car terminal. We've also just started a really lovely relationship with the Kumatoto Restoration Project. Actually came off the back of, Martin, if you're listening, big shout out to you, off the back of one of these presentations. Of course, the cable car is within the catchment area of the Kumatoto. That is actually Kelburn Park, that picture. Martin posted this recently, being filled in wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow. So just really important for us to work with them closely on any of our seismic or construction work, because whatever comes from us, it can end up, and we want to ensure that the awa is safe and looked after. And of course, anything you guys want, we'll partner with you. So Careers Expos, Te Kāinga programs, always looking for opportunities to work with council on your projects. I just wanted to particularly call out our relationship with Victoria University. So we do a lot with them and we attend their expos and the like, but this year we also worked with the halls of residence for the first time. So every new student that came in, little young things, and they have a little orientation pack, they all got a free 5-trip card on the cable car. And that was, A, to let them know we were there, because even though we're going right outside their window, they're like, what? And just make new student, 3 years worth of locals basically, and that's been really successful, and they've all topped up their cards again. So we'll do that again this year. Last pillar around nurturing our whānau. So this is just our ongoing training and development to enable our team. We do a lot of training during our shutdown. Things like mental health workshops, managing challenging conversations. We've done sign language courses. So enjoy doing everything we can with the team in that space. We've also transitioned from a performance review approach, which I always think you sort of sit there and you look back at the last 12 months of what you should have done or could have done or whatever. And we've changed that to on-track chats. So there's 6 monthly with each team member, and it's all about just looking forward and seeing what training and development and what's next, rather than always having to review the past so intimately. And yeah, really pleased with our staff survey results from FY25, which saw all of the pillars that we were really concentrating on all going up into the 90s, and that overall connection and leadership percentage is up to 99 and 100%. So a bit scary, because the only way to go is down from there. I'm like, but we'll keep on pushing to get those other ones up towards 100% as well. Challenges, boo. I think probably the biggest challenge that I've talked to you about and you know about is that cruise decline. It's going gangbusters globally, but New Zealand's down 40% over the last 2 years. So for us this season, that I said to the councillors who came the other day, that's about $600,000 or $700,000 revenue that walked through the door 2 years ago that's not walking through the door this season. So that's really serious, and it's really hard to fill that gap. It's like trying, 90,000 people for Wellington, fewer passengers. That's like the whole of the German market to New Zealand or the whole of the Japanese market. It's massive, and I'm not just going to fill that gap, selling a few more magnets. So, but we will keep working on that. The good thing is that we have really strong stakeholders in Wellington NZ, of course, and the port, working together really closely on their cruise strategy. The other great thing is the government is super engaged. Minister Upston has been really amazing with her support for the sector and trying to get that recovery. We're starting to see a bit of a turnaround. There's winter cruising back in Auckland, but the Wellington port worked really hard to get Princess cruises back within a couple of years. Their numbers had dropped a lot, and just the work that they did is bringing another 40 or 50,000 people in the particular season that they're coming back. So, everyone's working on it, everyone's committed to it, but it'll take a while. We'll be lucky to get everything back to normal in 3 to 4 years, and that's good considering it could have been 5 to 10. So quickly, just touching on Q1, so a little bit down on passengers, about 5,000, but again, we had some atrocious weather and we also had a 24-hour breakdown. So again, to be within 10%, I'm pretty happy with that. We had our AMS, where are we? There we go. The 3 pictures with the really shabby looking car. So we had 3 weeks this year because we had so much work to do on car 2. Unfortunately, because it's rust, it is OPEX, not CAPEX, so profit will take a bit of a hit. This financial year, we've been supporting Tākina events again, of course, and we've also been trialling some promotions to get some interest on the weekends and stuff, Spring Sundays, promoting the All Blacks, giving promo codes to WOW. And this was meant to sort of twirl and come out like this, so I'll just do it with my hand. Really proud to be a finalist in the New Zealand Tourism Awards. So I'll just leave you with those 3 things. So those are our key focus areas for FY26. In fact, for the triennium, because they will take at least 3 years to deliver and or turn around. So all that seismic work we need to do, starting to plan for the car replacement in 5 to 8 years' time, and then figuring out how we fund that car replacement given the decline in cruise and the fact that we need to perhaps generate some more revenue. And that's all. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much,
Tansy, if I
Tansy.
could just-
We have a couple of questions. Sorry, Anne Fergus. Sorry. Yep.
Sorry, I just wanted to add in that just so councillors are clear that we do actually, the Wellington Cable Car Limited does own all its own assets. So I think that's quite an important one, and we obviously depreciate those. But so we fund the replacement of gates and that maintenance work out of our trading.
Great, thanks, Fergus. First of all, we have Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Yeah, I was just wondering where we are in the quagmire of national ticketing and the Regional Council's recent announcement about being able to tap on. I was in Sydney a few weeks ago and it was amazing that I could just use a phone to get around the entirety of the city.
Yeah, well, I read that too, and I read that the National Transport System ticketing system has been delayed, and that Greater Wellington Regional Council will bring through that tap on. I guess the thing is, in fact, put yourself in your shoes again. You tapped on, were you by yourself? What if you were with your family and there was a family rate? What if you were a student? So we can do that at the cable car, but our problem with doing just that debit card thing is the fact that we have all these different concession rates and the like. At the time when we decommissioned Snapper, we also made a decision then that we probably wouldn't be part of the ticketing system because of all of the different rates that we have and the fact that, well, only 25% of the business is commuters. Yeah. Does that kind of answer it? Sort of, yep.
Thank you. Now we have Whakahaere.
Thank you, Tansy and Fergus. Just a quick one on the decline in cruise ship customers. Do you think that might be, is there any thought being given to the possibility, I mean, I understand the airport, Wellington Airport's got this plan to increase direct flights to various places around the world. Will that have any impact, do you think?
On the cruise numbers?
On your numbers, you know, just instead of cruise ship customers.
Oh, absolutely. I wrote that somewhere myself the other day. I was sort of like, Wellington Airport could get Singapore Airlines back and some of those big internationals. Yeah, if we could get more internationals, because if they're going into Auckland and Christchurch, they're then sort of taking the usual trip that a tourist takes and maybe only spending the 2 nights in Wellington. But if we could get direct connection, game changer, yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Great, thanks. And next we have Councillor. Yes, sorry, I'm getting pronunciation right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tansy and Fergus. I just, and my apologies, you could have mentioned this earlier. Do you have any partnerships with like WOW and different sort of like restaurants or Wellington on a Plate, for example, or is that an untapped sort of opportunity that you can explore? Or?
There potentially is. I mean, we worked with WOW on WOW, just because it was the 20th anniversary, so we were a partner with them in regards to giving discounts to people who came along and showed their tickets, and we've had WOW displays ourselves in the terminals before. But yeah, I think there's always opportunities to work with. Well, we've got a cultural outreach program that we're going to put together in the next 6 months, which is all about who else we could target. A lot of that is about bringing artists and performers to the cable car and providing that venue for free. So it's not going to be a big revenue earner, but yeah, we work with local hotels. A lot of people sell our tickets on, on their concierge desks and stuff. So. But yeah, a Wellington on a Plate, up and down on the cable car having dinner could be pretty cool.
It could be fantastic, or even dinner on the cable car.
Dinner on the cable car. Let's do it.
Sorry, that's all the questions we have at the moment, but I have a few I'd like to ask. You mentioned that you've had a 27% reduction in carbon emissions. How did you do that?
Well, the first one was a new electric van. So that reduced our emissions by 10%. Most of the other ones are related to electricity, so doing everything we can from installing timers on all the lighting, turning the TVs off at night, just being really conscious of what our electricity usage is, basically. But yeah, the main one that's left is the petrol that goes into the water blaster and stuff like that. So there's really small things that we can do now to keep reducing until we perhaps get our electricity contract, all of government comes up again in a couple of years, and then we can look at purchasing some new electricity certificates that apparently will reduce our carbon emissions.
Great, that's great, very impressive, thank you. Before I forget, thank you very much for hosting us just recently as well. I really enjoyed that, and again, always learning something new every time I go up there, so thank you for that. Looking at the domestic travellers, so is there any way we can actually look at visitors from other cities, like, when they come down here, is there some way we can possibly work with Air New Zealand or with Jetstar to maybe give them a discounted ticket to the cable car, and hopefully when they use that ticket, they'll bring someone else along?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, and there's also, I guess, opportunities for maybe we could advertise in Cura magazine or something on Air New Zealand. I'm sure there's some marketing opportunities.
No, that's great. I noticed that when I'm travelling up from Hong Kong to China, I found that they do the same thing with a discount on an NPR ticket. So I always take advantage of that, because if you're going to buy the ticket anyway, you may as well take saving, and you always take someone else with you. So that's really good. Thank you. No, thanks very much, Tansy. Much appreciated, and Fergus as well. So thanks you.
Fergus.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you. Right, now we'll take afternoon tea for 10 minutes if that suits. Feel free to grab something to bite and grab something to eat and bring your coffee back to your table. Great, thank you. Museum Trust, Diana Marsh, thank you, Diana, and Martin Matthews.
I think that's
Welcome. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Can we just help us? The slideshow. There we go. Right, I'll just work out how to do this. She's been savvy leaders on driving kind of a lot of visitor experience and commercial growth in the organisation, so she can deal with some of those questions if you have them. I am mindful, like others that have appeared, we have some newly elected councillors. This is an opportunity for you to get to know us a little bit and hopefully us to get to know you. In that context, let me just make a couple of very high-level remarks. Our purpose as an organisation is to create remarkable experiences for both Wellingtonians and visitors to our city. And we do that through kind of experiences at a number of venues, most notably the City Gallery, the Wellington Museum, Space Place, and a number of others. And we do that kind of with a passion for the city and a passion for the opportunities that creates, not just for the citizens, but the people who visit this city. And the year in review was an unusual one for us, really. We had the City Gallery closed because of seismic strengthening in that building, but the team did a remarkable job at actually partnering with a number of other organisations to ensure that many of the planned exhibitions and experiences could be offered through those other venues. We've continued to kind of deal, as you have already heard, with reduced cruise ship visitation that impacts very directly, like others, on our revenue and visitation. But with careful cost control and with some very savvy commercial work, we actually produced a surplus as an organisation. Our raison d'etre is not to make money, but we do kind of want to focus on how we generate revenue so we can actually create more, experiences and ensure that our dependence on ratepayer funding is reduced. My focus right now, as we kind of sit in December 2025, is on 2026. It looks to be, for us, I think, what will be a really exciting year. We'll have the reopening of the City Gallery with kind of a very, very substantial and exciting international exhibition. The team at Capital E will kind of find their new permanent home in Te Matapihi when that reopens in the new year. Obviously, there are discussions in play, as have already been alluded to earlier in the meeting, around kind of where we go with the Wellington Museum and what decisions Council might make around how we go forward with that. And of course, just as significantly in a sense as our team actually will also have finally a permanent home in Te Matapihi. They've been camping and sort of nomadic for the last few years, so we're really looking forward to the opportunity to actually put down roots and have a proper home for the management team of the organisation. With that, I'll hand over to Diana to take through a bit more detail. Great. Well, I don't have as many pictures as the others, and at this rate I can't even get them. So, there we go. So I'm just going to try and keep this quick and high level and hopefully not cross over too much on what Martin's already said. Visitation, we had strong numbers and we exceeded them last year. This was despite a reduction in visitors to Wellington on cruise ships. Like everybody else that you've heard before, we're very affected by cruise ship numbers. Something that really worked well for us was relocating the City Gallery with partnerships with Te Papa, the Dowse, and an ongoing partnership with National Library, where we've currently got an exhibition and our second exhibition out at the Dowse. So we exceeded our visitor numbers
well over 100,000, even though we're expecting 50,000. Another really pleasing result was our surplus. Initially, when we put in our SOI, projected a loss of 255,000. We made a surplus of 1.45 million. Now, there's a number of factors as to why this happened. Partly the gallery closure. I think that the reduction in staff hadn't been taken into account when that was first put in place. But we also had a ruthless cost-cutting process. We reprioritised our budget. We identified what we needed to focus our funds on, and we did that, and we stuck to that. And if there was any concern about declining ability to meet our targets, we refocused again, and the whole ELT worked on that. The other factor in the surplus was we'd actually included in expenses our capital purchases. Now, that's not usually what you do, and we only did that because we were in a difficult financial position to try and see what we were really making in terms of income. So we achieved our income target, which was pretty impressive, and that's thanks to the good work of Alicia's team, because cruise ships were down, visitation was down in a number of our places where we actually sell product, because we don't at the City Gallery sites, and they worked really hard and really cleverly to do that. We also reduced our inventory, which was sitting at a high rate on our balance sheet. Key achievements, we also did a partnership with the Waitangi Tribunal to celebrate their 50th anniversary, a really important anniversary in this country's history, and we probably won't see another 50 years because its work should be done by then. So we felt really proud and formed an ongoing relationship with them. They helped us broker sponsorship from Kahui Legal and other places, so I think that will be an enduring partnership. We also had the completion of the multi-year space place upgrade, and that had some closure longer than we expected, but it's a good result. Alicia and I have taken a look at planetariums around the country, and we're looking forward to implementing more in the space place area, and we think there's a lot more that we can do with that. So forward focusing, that's something we'll be looking on. So those are some of the key achievements of the year. Challenges, you've heard it, cruise ship reductions, and declining education numbers. This is a bit of an issue. School visits have declined, and that's because the cost of buses are really prohibitive. The cost of actually entry fees, and actually the paperwork is so cumbersome now for schools, it's really difficult. So we're just looking at how differently we can do that. So we're now looking at a program where we go to schools. What is pleasing is we went out to schools, we've been going out to schools, and our Cornelia Parker exhibition is getting filled up already for next year. So even the schools are excited about that, so that's really great. So those are sort of some of our key challenges. Obviously, we've had 3 sites affected by earthquake issues and remediation, City Gallery, Capital E, and obviously the ongoing issues of the bond store. So if I take you to the quarter to date, we are ahead of ourselves with income at the moment, which is pleasing. It doesn't mean that's held all land at the end of the year, but we're on track. Sorry, I'm just looking at the wrong thing here. My eyes aren't quite good enough to read that far. Our spend per visitor is on track, even though this was taken over the low season. So I think our target is $4.16 per head, and we're already at $4.15, and that should increase over the summer months. We're really looking forward to the opening of Capital E, Nukutiao and Tamatapihi, and work is underway, and that's very exciting. So that's been going on over this period. And our future focus is income growth. So over the last year, we've looked at cost cutting. We can't continue to do that. We've had some staff freezing and all sorts of things. We actually acknowledge that we need to work harder on our income, despite the amazing work Alicia has been doing. So that is not to say she hasn't been doing it, because she's really been pulling her fair share of it and more. But just looking how we can better achieve income. Our international ticketing was successful. We achieved 130,000 in international charges for the museum. Now the downside of that was the donations. They did drop. We anticipated that they would drop. They dropped more than we anticipated. The net outcome was 70,000, but we don't know if some of those donations dropped anyway because of the economy at the moment and the decreased visitation. But we also figured that if people are coming in and they're having to pay, they're less likely to make donations. So we still ended up ahead by 70k. So we feel that was successful, and we're looking at that model for the City Gallery now. Obviously, we're gallery plans. We're really excited about the opening exhibition next year, and we've got a lot of media. We've also got a lot of corporate sponsors, either on the go or we've achieved. We worked hard with Wellington Airport, and they helped us broker a relationship with Singapore Airlines, which is amazing given they don't fly into Wellington. We've got a sponsorship. They're giving us a number of flights, 2 business class, which is actually from London to Wellington, plus some other giveaways. That's quite significant because it's their most expensive route, and we need the business class fares for some of our overseas people that are coming. That's a requirement. We also have a sponsorship with Simpson Greason, and we're working with others. So we're excited about the opening of Te Matapihi. We're really excited about Tanako in the future, and we're looking forward to continuing to working with you all. I'd like to just acknowledge Anna Calver and Jamie Crump, who have been amazing partners to work with. I feel like this is the best funding relationship I've ever had. It feels like a true partnership, but also to the other staff, those who have helped support us to get into Te Matapihi in our offices and worked with us on all the earthquake remediation, which has been massive, and the team have been wonderful. And also just to acknowledge all of the councillors, the old ones that we know and the new ones that we're looking forward to working with. I think we're all here for the right reasons, and that's for Wellington and its ratepayers. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any, questions? Yep. Question from Deputy Mayor McNulty.
Kia ora. I guess just given the public submitters' interest in the bond store at the moment, can you just talk us through what costings you've seen and what's driving the impetus that might not be a viable proposition for Whiako Poiniki to remain in there?
Can I make a couple of general comments around that? I mean, firstly, as I think you'll be well aware, the bond store is a council-owned building, so any decisions around dealing with the seismic issues are council decisions, not trust board decisions. The last LTP obviously shifted any potential funding for that project way out into the future. So the prospect of that being done in the near term is small. To your question, a full detailed seismic assessment of the building was done and costed, and I'll let Diana talk to that, but my understanding at the moment is that the assumption is that the remediation cost is in the order of $60 million.
Yeah, that's what we've been told at minimum, but I understand that there's going to be another assessment of that, which we welcome. We wanted to stay in the bond store, but when we actually looked at the possibility of staying there, it's just not feasible because we can't upgrade the exhibition. It's becoming tired. We have to make these decisions about some of our equipment that's becoming run down, whether we stay there. We can't, adapt our exhibitions to current day practices. We can't engage in the way that we'd like to because of the awkwardness of the building. More importantly, even if we didn't have to go through earthquake remediation, it's actually very expensive to upgrade the bond store because of the awkwardness of the building and the size of it. Our future focus on where we want to go fits with other types of buildings. So for us, in terms of having to fundraise significant amounts of money, and we're talking about millions to achieve this, cost effectiveness is key, and I'm sure you will all appreciate that, understanding where we're at as a city. So those are some of the reasons why we feel the need to move. But the earthquake remediation makes it extremely difficult because we've just got to sit and wait, and we've been waiting for 10 years, and it's not great for our city to have a museum that can't really have any money invested into it while we continue to wait. And I understand the city's problems.
What I would just stress to finish on this point is that whether the question of funding the remediation of that building is a council decision. The question of where the future of the Wellington Museum is located is a council decision. Yep. I would fully expect that you will get advice around options, their pros and cons, the costs and benefits, so that council can make decisions on both matters, understanding both what our respective legal obligations are and what will deliver the best outcome for citizens and ratepayers, both current and future, to deliver the best outcomes with a Wellington Museum. And I stress again, I think this is a matter which is still to be worked through and decisions to be made in the new year by council.
Great, thank you. Now we have a question from Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, mine was if you could briefly, I guess, sort of talk to the value proposition outside of just the physical building, but also the curation that's unlocked by having a new venue and the way that you're able to tell different stories for Wellington that might not be able to be told in the Bond store.
Yeah, I think my observation is that a building really sets the tone of a museum. If you go anywhere in the world, museums that really work are buildings that work with those ideas. So, you know, given we're the capital city and given we're Wellington, we would like to expand to actually talk about our role as the capital city and talk about our community more and engage in a much greater way than we currently do and that we're currently able to. You know, the Bond Store is a beautiful building, but it speaks to a certain time and place. Other buildings, such as Tākina, might be able to allow us to tell a different kind of story that's in keeping with what we want to do, and also the presence of mana whenua and the importance of that.
Great, thanks very much. I wasn't going to ask any more questions, but I just have one more. Do you have any idea of the cost of actually moving to Tākina? Have you had any estimates?
Well, yeah, we estimate that to do Outmark at Tākina would be approximately 15 million. I think the Bond Store was about $10 million more. Yeah, there'd be about a $2 million project, which if we had to, we could fund because we have built up our reserves, and that would include decanting and getting a project team together.
Great. Thanks, Diana. Much appreciated. Thank you. Thanks. Right, now I'd like to welcome Karen Fifield, as always. You're very, very welcome, Karen, from the Zoo Trust. And Councillor Foon will be accompanying.
No, she's not. She's not allowed. I do want to apologise for Jamie Tutor. He's had a very big event today down at Parliament, so he's unable to be here this afternoon. You read all about it in the media. So, first of all, I just want to reiterate what everyone else has said today about how grateful we all are for your support, and also to mention the officers, but particularly Anna and Jamie. And I think Diana said it beautifully. It really is like a partnership now rather than just a reporting relationship. So I really want to give them a Christmas present from all the CCOs and say that we love working with them and they're just fantastic people. So I'm going to present the annual report and the Quarter 1 report this afternoon. So we were really, actually before I do that, I should explain. The way I'm going to structure it is looking at our strategic pose. So I haven't put our strategy on a page document into this presentation, but you'll see as we go through it what the strategic pose are for the zoo. So looking at our first one around oranga and a healthy organisation, what I will say is we were very, very pleased in terms of the health of an organisation. We achieved 17 of our 19 measures for the last financial year, 2 of which I will mention that we didn't hit, but everything else we met or exceeded those measures. So we achieved our ZAR accreditation. So just for explanation, the Zoo and Aquarium Association Australasia certifies members in terms of animal welfare. So we go through that process every 3 years, and so we achieve that accreditation again. But what we do annually is we put ourselves through that accreditation process so that we know that we're ready for it when it comes around. We hosted the International Congress of Zookeepers during the last financial year as well. So zookeepers from all around the world came to the city. They loved Wellington. They thought it was a fantastic place. And they go everywhere all around the world for these conferences. So we were very happy to host it last year. We achieved our Rainbow Tick certification again. And in our staff survey, 90% of our people affirmed that our kaupapa makes their mahi feel important and purposeful. So we're really pleased with that result. And just looking at some of the financials and the visitor numbers, so you'll see from this that we're trading well, but we've still invested more per visitor than we had budgeted to do. And what we're looking at here is what the council gives us in terms of an operating grant versus what the zoo contributes to the running of the zoo as well. So you're looking at target and actuals for the last financial year. So you'll see that we're still doing well financially, but we're still actually spending more per visitor, and I'll explain a little bit about that as we go through. But so you'll see that what we're doing is the comparative to the grant, we're doing okay compared to the operating grant that we receive from council, but we're still going to be in a deficit, and that's really annoying to me, but I'll explain a little bit why. So looking at our non-council operational donations and funding, so aside from the money that we make through our commercial operations and through visitors coming in the door, we also get donations and grants for our operating funding as well. So last year we had a target of about 400,000 and we exceeded that to 418,000. This year, to date, we're already way ahead of that funding. I do want to say I've got one fundraising person at the zoo, and she works so hard to get this money. So we're not a big team, but Sian works very hard to make sure that we keep our operating funding as much as we can do, as much as possible to keep that number. And then looking at our next strategic area is whānau, our role. Obviously, sustainability is very important to us in terms of the SDGs and in terms of carbon zero, but also it comes under things like a digital detox, and people often don't think about the internet as being a place of carbon emissions, and it's probably the 6th biggest carbon emitter in the world, including all countries, because everyone thinks it's in the cloud. Not such a thing as a cloud. There's a big building with a whole lot of computers in it. So we went through a process last year where we had a look with our host of our website to have a look if we could decarbonise our website to some degree. So we ended up saving more than 25% in terms of carbon. And that's been really interesting in terms of a global perspective. Of course, Amy Hughes presented this at our global conference last year, and so many zoos around the world are going, how did you do it? We want to do it. So it's really important that, and really simple things you can do, like what's the sort of pictures and the pixelization that you put onto the website. It doesn't change the images. It's just the way it's actually loaded onto the website. We reviewed our conservation strategy, and I'll go a little bit more into some of the conservation work we've been doing. And we achieved 17 of our 21 UN SDG goals for this year as well. Okay. Then looking at Hinanaro, our purpose. It's really hard to read that, isn't it, up there? So looking at new conservation partners, so what we do with our conservation partners is we usually work with organisations where we're actually caring for the animals that are endangered or critically endangered. So this year we ended up, we changed to having another partner with the Giraffe Conservation Foundation and the Chatham Islands Taikor Trust. We'd been supporting the Taikor Trust for many years as part of our local conservation grants program, and we thought, well, why are we doing this every year? We know we're going to support them. If you don't know, there's only 57 taikor left in the world. So they're very, very critically endangered little animals. We've had 2 of them come to Te Kohanga over the years with respiratory illness. One didn't make it, one did make it, and I know she's had 3 clutches since she went back. So we made Chatham Islands Taikor Trust a formal partner this year, and Giraffe Conservation Foundation. Giraffes are in trouble in Africa, and so giraffes are fairly iconic for us, so it made sense to work with Giraffe Conservation Foundation. I want to mention the Whitaker's skinks because, again, an animal that we believe is extinct in the wild, and they're being held in a number of partners, including the zoo. So Department of Conservation has put together a group of people that hold the last of these animals. We're still doing some genetic work on whether or not the population at Pukerua Bay was the last of that species or subspecies, because we think there might be another population in Northland, but we've got to do the genetics on that to work that out. But we hold 24 of these skinks. There's only 58 known specimens or individuals. So we're just about to introduce them for breeding. They're the 2nd most aggressive gecko in the country. They like to kill each other. And so we've got to be very careful how we introduce them. So at the moment they're held in individual habitats, and now we've got to work out how we can breed them, because we eventually want to release those back to Pukerua Bay. The tuatara translocation is really quite interesting because a lot of organisations hold tuatara in the country, and our animal science manager is the coordinator for that program in human care. And so every couple of years or every few years we decide, or Doc decides with us, can they be released somewhere else? So we sent 15 down to Nelson this year. And then talking about Te Kohanga, which obviously was a game changer for us, 56% of wild animals were treated at the nest Te Kohanga were released. So that's pretty good. So what we do is we triage those animals, so some of them obviously can't make it, and then they're euthanised, and then others are then released. Our next strategic PO is tinana. So obviously animals are the key. No animals, no zoo. So it makes sense that tinana is one of our strategic PO. This year we did a refurbishment of the otter area and the gibbon area. Gibbons are iconic to us. Everyone knows Robin and Wilson in the city. They hear them every morning. And so we're a founding partner for gibbons in Vietnam with Fauna and Flora. They used to be Fauna and Flora International, but we work in Pumat National Park in Vietnam with them. And otters, everyone loves the welcoming chorus of our brothers. So this year we changed, we actually did some work to fix up their areas, so now we can do encounters with the otters, because that's another good commercial product for us. You don't actually go in with them because they do bite, but you can go and you can put out their enrichment in their habitat, and you can watch them go out and get that. You can also go into their house with earmuffs on, no, but they're very loud, but it's quite fun. We had a lot of births this year, obviously, as well. I'm really excited about Wellington green geckos, because our plan, eventually, I probably won't be there to see it, but our plan would be that every backyard in the city has Wellington green geckos, as it used to be. They were very common, they're now not, and if we can make sure that we can breed them for restoration, that would be fantastic. 2 Tassie Devils came over as well, and we've got some more, as I mentioned, Swedish skinks, and we got our new capybara, Fernando, so we're able to now do capybara encounters again with them. Last year, Jessie, our 46-year-old chimp matriarch, died. It was quite an emotional experience for me. I used to say good morning to Jessie every morning as I arrived at work. Jessie would be sitting up there on her nest, and I would say good morning, and she would do this, and so it was quite an emotional time for me when Jessie passed. And I won't mention the giraffes. And then just looking at animal food, I just wanted to, because people often ask me how much does it actually cost to feed the animals, and I thought, well, maybe because some of you might not have seen this before, I thought, well, why not talk to you about it? And it's a fascinating little story in itself, because as you can see, they eat a lot of fruit and veggies. And the other thing they eat is insects. So we breed a lot of our own insects, because trying to get insects is really difficult within the country. So we breed a lot of our insects, and there's also meat, obviously, that they eat. What's been fascinating with meat this year, not only the cost, but the amount of wild meat we've been able to actually or wild caught meat we've been able to actually access. And we have to have specially certified meat. We can't just go out into the bush and shoot our own goat. We have to go and we have to make sure that MPI are across the meat that we feed our animals. So it's been very difficult this year because there's been a lot of limit on areas for hunting, and it's also impacting the pet food industry. So we've had to try and find new suppliers for our meat products. So now what we're doing is getting whole carcasses brought to the zoo, which means more refrigeration. So we can't actually get it in any other way. So the numbers is one thing, but the supply chain's another issue as well. I remember a few years back we couldn't get lucerne. It was so difficult. So it does have these ebbs and flows around animal food. And looking at Wairua, which is our community, the zoo is a community asset. We are very, very committed to being accessible for all members of our community, and we do a lot of accessibility events every year, and we work with a number of organisations to make sure their whānau can access the zoo as well, because not everyone can afford to pay the price it would cost to get into the zoo. So we do a lot of that work. And of course, this year with our Te Ao Māori strategy, we were very excited to have Te Manawa Ora, our Panamu, come to the zoo and be gifted to us. And that has formed quite a tikanga around things like welcoming our people and welcoming animals and farewelling animals. So we're building that tikanga around the work that we do with the zoo around Te Ao Māori strategy. And we're working with Nevin Broughton from Taranaki Whānui to do that work. And then new experiences, we've launched a number of new encounters because these are, it was what Danielle was saying before. You can't keep saying you're going to go visit a number, visit a number, visit a number. In a city of 200,000 people, it's not sustainable. But getting people to do other things and other experiences, you can add those boutique experiences to the mix. And so introducing more encounters, and what we've found to date is we've done over 200 more encounters than what we did last year. And I really want to congratulate the zoo team. They've really put their shoulder to the wheel on this, because it does take time out of their day to do it, but they love it, and they're really engaging with our visitors. So we do have aggressive budgets this year to keep our deficit as low as possible. We've said in the SOI our deficit will be about 311, and we're actually 1,000, so we really want to keep it below that. And these are some of the things we're trying to do to make sure that we can get that deficit lower. And then looking at our visitor numbers, it's really interesting to me when you think about capital investment. And a few of us have alluded to that today. I know the Basin guys were talking about it a lot. And if you look at 23-24, that's the year we had snow leopards. It's the best visitation the zoo's ever had in its history. And that's about capital investment. When we did the previous zoo capital program, we were tracking at about a 3% increase per annum on visitor numbers linked to capital investment. And I think I mentioned some of this to you when you guys visited us at the zoo a few weeks back, because that is what drives visitation. That's what drives people to come and want to do more at the zoo. If you look at last year, we did not hit our visitor target, and that was to do with a few things. It was to do with things like the climate, the economic climate in the city, and also weather. And I'll talk a little bit about weather when I talk about this year's tracking. So if you look at this year, we're on budget. That was up to the end of September. October was a shocker. And so October, we closed the zoo twice. We have never in the history of the zoo closed the zoo, ever. We might have closed early, but those wind warnings were so terrible. And at our last Zoo Global Conference, when I was in Cali in October, everyone was talking about how these weather impacts are affecting zoos and open door venues all around the world. Aquariums are doing really well because they're climate controlled, but zoos around the world are struggling with either intense temperatures, like they get some of the temperatures in Australia at the moment are crazy, or weather events like we're getting. So October was awful, but I'm pleased to tell you we pulled it back in November, so we were ahead of what we targeted for November. So we're hoping for a good summer, like everyone is, and we'll see where we land at the end of January. I want to talk about operational and capital grants, because operational grants, as I mentioned, we try to get as much as possible, but capital grants we get in terms of investing into the asset that the City Council owns. So last year, we were looking at about 407,000 in terms of operational, and only 153 for, this year for operational. But for capital, we're going to invest back to council this year $800,000 that we've raised from pub charity and from an individual donor who gave us $300,000 for the penguin refurb. So we're on two fronts, trying to raise for capital, and we're also trying to raise for operational. And it does pull Shan in many directions in terms of fundraising. And I just wanted to make that clear to you about how tough it is out there in the market. And then looking at Q1, as I mentioned, we were tracking well in terms of our visitor numbers, but then it went down in October. But overall, it's looking pretty good. I mean, at the moment, we're only about 30,000 below what we thought our deficit would be at this point. And after that awful October, I was really happy that it was only that. So if we have a good summer, and the other big thing that's going to happen next year is the zoo is 120 next year. So we're going to have a lot of activity around the 120th birthday. So hopefully that will drive some of that visitation and some of that commercial spend as well. We're changing the videos for Wild Explorer this week, so the new ones will be the Great Migration and the other ones on dolphins. And that's been really quite interesting, having the virtual experience. So it's hitting our targets in terms of what we thought would be about 7% uptake, and then we're hitting that. And then I just want to mention the Gold Awards. We do that every year for our staff. It's the 13th one we've done. and they love it. Our staff actually celebrate each other. They really love it. Auckland Zoo asked me the other day how we do it. They said their staff didn't want to do it because they didn't want to see people getting awards and other people didn't get awards. Okay. Well, it's staff nominated and it's all judged by an external committee. I don't even know who wins. So, yeah. And then we're going to be doing some work in the chimp day room, which we've just completed, and the chimps are back in there, and we're doing some work on giraffes next year as well. The challenges, and I'm looking at the time, and I promised Jamie I'd be quick, and I haven't been. Obviously, thinking about revenue, thinking about how we drive that revenue. We've got to think about what we do around utilities. Water is up by 11% over budget, and energy is up by 5% over budget. So there's some stuff like that that's really out of our control in terms of the use of those utilities. I mean, we've got 23 water tanks in the zoo, so we do use a lot of sustainable water, but there's still a lot of water that we do use. So it's shoulder to the wheel, see where we can get to with all of this, and we'll keep you informed. Me tiaki kia ora. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions?
I never have questions.
You've done an excellent presentation. You've answered all the questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Karen. Much appreciated. Thank you. Great. Now, we have the Wellington Regional Stadium, Sky Stadium, and we have Warwick Dent. And we don't have Warwick Dent. Warwick online, yep. And Rachel, welcome, Rachel. Thank you. Good to see you here.
O tēnā rā tātou, te rangatira, Councillor Chang, tēnā koe. I mihi ana ki te mana whenua, te awa me tarana ki whānau whānui, tēnā koutou, Holden, tēnā koe. O te rā, councillors, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Rachel Tauralei tōku unga. My name is Rachel Tauralei. I hail from the mighty metropolis of Otaki, but for all intents and purposes have been born and bred here in Wellington for... Well, I won't say the number because it's really personal. We're not there yet, guys. It's a new relationship. But have been on the Stadium Trust coming on 12 years, and the last 3 of those in chair. So a pleasure to be here giving you this report for last year and the first quarter of this year. Warwick is online. Warwick, did you perhaps want to introduce yourself? He's on leave today. He's doing a bad impression of being on leave.
Kia ora everyone. I'm Warwick Dent. I'm the Chief Executive at Sky Stadium. I am on leave. The last time I spoke to a council meeting, I was also on leave, which either means I go on leave a lot or I just coincide them with these meetings. But great to see everybody.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. We will follow a similar format as everyone has previously, and also will echo our thanks to Anna and Jamie for the work through this year. It makes a real, a bit of a cakewalk. That's no pun intended with the cake. Oh, that was quite a good one, actually. Anyway, end of the day for all of you. But it does make it straightforward when you're dealing with great people who do their job very, very well. Also want to welcome especially Councillor O'Brien to the Wellington Regional Stadium Trust. It's great we've had one meeting, and so it's a great new addition to the team. It's been a good year, not without its challenges, as everyone else has had. We've also had trust changes. Steve Chu moved to Central Otago, so he departed the trust, and Philippa Harford also spending more time out of the city than she is in, so she also has departed the trust. But we welcomed on John Horwath, who came from Wellington Airport, and I'll come back to the airport in a moment, and also Peter Miskimen, who comes to us with a really great sporting pedigree, local and central government, and sport diplomacy. So and also came from Sport New Zealand, where he was the chief executive. I touch on the airport because I'm also the Wellington City Council's appointed representative or director on Wellington Airport. So if and when that does come up in future, just letting you know that. So we'll go do the year past and we'll do Q1 of this year. So at a glance, you will see that we had 40 event days in the last year. We had about 280,000 attendees. You'll see that is lower than the year prior, but we had, of course, FIFA in that year, so that sort of blew all numbers sky high, which was fantastic for us, but we're sort of getting back to a more normalised number of attendees. The financial result was a surplus of 1.1 million, and that includes our grant income. Thank you very much for that. And we're not 120 like the zoo, but we did have our 25th birthday in the year past, and we opened the doors and had the stadium all access for fans and those who had never, and those who had been actually to the stadium, to come in for the day, had emergency services there. We had some Hurricanes, some of the Phoenix, some of the other sporting teams, all available to whomever wanted to come and have a play, really. And the look of sheer excitement when people came down the stadium and actually got to touch the turf was something to behold. So, and I know how hard it is to get onto that turf, so I think that they probably earned it. We do have a really strong pipeline. We've got 4 major events, or have had 4 major events in Q1, and I'll come back to it, but we have some really good things coming up in the first part of 2026 calendar year. So just moving through here, at the beginning of our last year, the Trust completed work on the new strategic plan. This coincided closely with Warwick's arrival. Warwick has been in the role for, I think, 18 months, Warwick. It seems to go quickly, but around 18 months. So it was a really good time to think again about what our vision for the stadium would be. When the stadium was built, some of you will be aware that it was really built with 50 years in mind. That's a number. We actually plan for significantly more than that. I'd be pretty terrified if we thought in 25 years it was just sort of going to turn to dust. It won't, and we're doing a lot of work to ensure that it doesn't. But 50 years was the number that was built, the number that was in mind when it was built. So we're halfway through that. So it's a good time to think about what will the next 25 look like for us. We will never be the biggest. Eden Park or Auckland will probably always have the biggest stadium. As you know, Christchurch is about to open, so they will always be the newest and shiniest. So what we really needed to double down on is being the most loved venue in the country. And I think there are lots of really neat things about the stadium which people either do have a bit of a love-hate relationship with. The no roof. We're round, we're not rectangular, we have yellow seats. All of these things I love about the stadium, but I'm probably a little biased. But those are the things that we can build on, as well as focusing on exceptional customer experience, making sure that we have a stadium that's built for both now and in the future. So it's about technology. What are the things that we can build into the stadium to make it a seamless, enjoyable, frictionless experience? Commercial and financial sustainability, and then strong partnerships and stakeholder relationships, because whilst we provide the venue, we come to life when people fill that venue with events and activities. The financials are, as I'm sure that you will have seen them, so we had event day revenues of around 4.8 million. We had boxes and memberships of 7.8, total revenue, including grants, of 15.8. Operating expenses, as you see them, at 10.6. So a surplus before depreciation of 5.2 and after depreciation of 1.1. On the capital works program, that's something that occupies a lot of our time. Sometimes I think when people come into the trust or sit on the trust, they imagine we spend most of our time talking about the Hurricanes and Wrexham. We don't. We talk about steel corbels and brackets. But the capital works program is obviously very important to us as we ensure we are resilient as a venue. So we've had 2 significant capital projects in the last year. One of those was the replay screen replacement. The other one was LED lighting replacement. We've started our seismic resilience project, and again, you and the Greater Wellington Regional Council have invested in that, and that will run all the way through to our next financial year. On exhibitions and community, we love having community events. We love having the big sporting events, the big, huge, shiny events, but we also love having the community events because we are, in fact, owned by the community. So we had 14 exhibition days in the last financial year with about 42,000 people attending. The events really, I think, serve to show that we're a multi-purpose venue. So we give back to the community by making it available for lots of community events. So we had this year hosting Ed El Fita, I hope I pronounced that correct. Not too bad, close, pretty close. Okay. And Ed El Udha? Yes, Udha. Thank you. So we had both of those events. We also had the Cancer Society's Relay for Life, which was a really great success. We had record participants and I think raised about $1 million. So that was pretty good fun for having that at the stadium. We, of course, had test match rugby back at the stadium. How to say, we've got a pretty poor record. That's not our fault, nothing to do with us. I'd just like to point out the All Blacks themselves have a poor record at our amazing venue, but it feels like a them problem. But we did have 2 matches. We had Argentina and the Bledisloe Cup match against Australia. One of those went really well. But I will say also, there is nothing like seeing that stadium, particularly post-FIFA, where we have invested or where an investment was made in the lighting and the pure experience you can have now as a result of having those big events that came to the city. We had the Lions. The Lions were very successful, and they, of course, had the NPC Championship for the second time in past 3 seasons. The Hurricanes were mostly successful, but pipped at the quarterfinal by a Bay of Plenty, so that was a bit of a shame, but it was good to have them back in there. You will know as much as anyone, and it probably takes us through to the Phoenix. It's harder and harder, I think, to attract live sporting events or live events to New Zealand as a whole, to Wellington specifically, because it is expensive for performers, sporting teams to actually come to this part of the world. So increasingly, we are having to think very, very carefully and be very tricky as a city and work very closely together to attract them to this part of the world, because they're often they'll have one event, they're often taking it to the bigger city, or they have a couple of events, they'll go North and South Island. So that's not to say we're not getting them, it just happens to be you have to work harder for the events that traditionally have always come here. Likewise for sporting events, it's much, much easier to stream on your phone than it is to get up off your couch and come into an event. But we're working really closely with the hirers to make sure that we help them on their fan strategy and bringing people into the event and having them come to the stadium. We had the FIFA World Cup in the year just past, so that was about qualifying for the semi-finals. New Caledonia defeated Tahiti, some of you might have been there. All Whites defeated Fiji, so that's about qualifying for next year's FIFA World Cup. So the year so far, the picture probably tells it all. We did have Wrexham to Wellington. That was pretty good fun for those of you who were there. We've already had 2 All Blacks tests, as I said. We hosted the Black Ferns in Australia in a double header, and then of course we had South Africa. We had monster wheels, monster trucks rather, so that was about 24,000 people in September, which was great. And the Seismic Resilience Project continues on through Q1. And then just looking ahead, in the first part of next year, we have Ed Sheeran. We've got the Black Caps and the White Ferns in a double header. We have the Anzac Warriors test, which we are predicting will be the largest Warriors home game. That's including Mount Smart. So we have almost sold out of hospitality at this minute. We've sold about 25% of the tickets. It's going really, really well. So that should be huge. We've got Relay for Life. We will have a new trustee, so we're replacing Philippa Harford in the first part of next year. And then in these meetings next year, you'll have a new chair. So at Christmas time, I'm going to pass the chair over to Owen Gibson, who has been on the trust for now 1 full term and 1 half term. I won't finish until June of next year, but I'm going to come off in with a view to succession and support Owen through the first part of next year as the new chair. And there's a couple of programs we're trying to stand up that I'll lean into while Owen carries on the business as usual. Warwick, is there anything that I've left out?
I think you've covered everything, Rachel. Thanks for that. It's far easier you presenting from there than me trying to do it from behind Councillor Chung's head.
Yes, that was a little agreement we made before we came. A bit easier for me to do it from here, but really happy to take any questions.
First question from Councillor Compton.
Thank you. I've just texted my brother to tell him to get tickets for the Warriors before he misses out. Just out of curiosity, I know the Hurricanes have been purchased by Malcolm Gillies, or the Gillies Group.
A share has, yeah.
Yep. And I was just curious, there's talk about pulling Hurricanes or Lions games off the stadium due to sort of like lower, crowd numbers. Have you guys given any consideration to what that might do economically to the stadium?
Yep. I mean, I'll go back a step further and say that the rugby agreement that we have with all of the rugby playing teams was drafted now 26 years ago, and so it covers everyone. And so obviously sport has evolved, rugby has evolved, as have we. And now the ownership for those entities has evolved. At this minute in time, our agreement is still with Wellington Rugby. So they will have a discussion amongst themselves to organise those entities so we can deal directly with Hurricanes officially. Unofficially, we have been working with the Hurricanes and Phoenix and Lions, all of whose numbers have been diminishing for some time, to help them feel less burdened by the finances of playing at the stadium. I will say also, though, when those teams play at the stadium, we are not making on those arrangements. So it's not something that we are holding on to because we're making gobsmacking amounts of cash out of those events. It's because we're there for them and we have a contractual arrangement whereby they play at our venue. Also, though it's not a great look for anyone if there's 2,000 or 3,000 people at a Phoenix game or 2,000 or 3,000 people at an NPC game when it's broadcast everywhere. So last year we were really supportive of the Lions taking their games out to Porirua Park. I think that probably had mixed results. I'm not sure it brought in any more people, if I'm honest, but it might have addressed some of the issues around getting different audiences there or costs associated with that. We have already been in negotiation with the Hurricanes to support them with their cost structure. Not to the detriment of the stadium, though, of course, because we are here for all. They are one code playing at the stadium, and we're here and owned by the community, essentially. So you've got to look at it from the bigger picture standpoint. But what it means is we'll support them in as much as we can. We want them to be where we are because we're the best venue for them. But there's a lot of work, I think, to be done also at the code level to bring back those fans. And we're really supportive, as is Wellington NZ, as is all of the entities, the public transport entities, to bring people together in a way that makes sure that there's more people on seats.
Great. Do we have any other questions? No. I just have one last one. When you look at the numbers of people coming to games, do you think that they're down because of the cost of living, the pressures on finance, or do you think it's people are losing interest in the game, or both?
I don't think people are losing interest in the game because the broadcast numbers are higher than they've ever been. So I don't think that potentially is the issue. I definitely think cost of living is playing into this. For instance, if you look at the All Black Test last year, we had 2. If you wanted to bring a family to an All Black Test last year, you would have been in the high hundreds to do that, and then we had 2 of them. One was costed higher than on and on it goes. That's obviously a peak event that attracts great cost. But I think even the cost of getting to an event, parking at an event, taking kids, feeding kids, all of those things do attract questions around cost of living. But also I think, Councillor Chung, we have to work harder to be the entertainment of choice. And so that's, given that all of the things that we have at our disposal, I do think there is a role to play in drumming that interest back up in the codes.
Keen to hear anything that you'd actually like from us, apart from more money, but anything we can actually do to help promotions or anything, please feel free to let us know or let Anna know. So
I appreciate the question. Warwick, do you have... I've got one thing, but you go.
Not immediately, but I think to the point where we're trying to service our hirers and the community that we want to come along and support them and watch matches, I think having an all-in approach from Council, Wellington NZ, from the stadium and from the hirers themselves is really important. I don't think it's something that one entity is going to solve by itself. I think it's going to take a team effort to really make sure that we continue to deliver really good experiences when people do come to the stadium, and that in turn drives greater visitation for future events.
And mine was it's a bit of a build on that also. It would be that we really concertedly speak positively of the stadium and its legacy and the opportunities that have come to it. I would encourage you to come to those events and to bring others to it. We've made a really great effort in the last 18 months to host people at most of the major events, and they vary from Wellington businesses to people who host events to councillors and administrators within the council, etc., because it's important that you see and feel and understand what that looks like. When we're at our best, what does that look and feel like? And when new trustees join the trust, my starting point is always to ask everyone to name their favourite moment at the stadium. And it's a really great moment because it ranges from, the Bahrain test to David Bowie to Sting play. Everyone has a memory of the stadium, and that's how we know we can be the most loved. But it has to start here. So I would encourage you to be sort of ardent ambassadors and supporters of what happens at the stadium, and sort of just throw off all of that, put a roof on it, and get rid of the yellow seats business. Boring. Yeah.
Great. If there are no more questions, I'd like to thank you very much for coming in and appreciate your feedback, and we'll try and give this some more thought about how to get more people there. Thank you. And thanks for it.
Kia ora.
Okay, cheers. Right, now that brings us to general business. The Council-controlled organisations annual reports. I'd like to welcome Jamie Crump back up to the podium here.
Tēnā koutou ngā Toki Whakahaere, kia ora CCO whānau, in introducing our CCO's FY 24-25 annual report paper, I'd like to reiterate what you've heard this afternoon. There is much to celebrate with our CCO's successes during the year, and they deliver a huge amount for the city. Happy to take any questions, any pātai.
Do we have any questions? No, I see none. Okay, I'd like to move the motion that, who would like to second it? Okay, Councillor Randall.
Do you want to speak?
Sorry, would you like, sorry.
Yes, so I just wanted to thank all of the CCOs for the time of coming to present to this new committee. I think this new committee is an opportunity to give more focus to our CCOs. They play a critical role in the whole mixture of supporting our city, and I think it's important that they get given the bandwidth to express not only their successes and their challenges, but also just so that everyone gets a better understanding where they all fit in, and also what leadership they've got. We've got some amazing leaders out there who are quietly doing the business, and this is a council which has problems, and often we get very fixated and have to spend a lot of time on dealing with the problems. But I think we've got 6 CCOs who are all in all actually managing very well in some trying times. And also the other thing which I think this committee has got an opportunity to do is to help the CCOs build a relationship not only with the council but also with the public, so that they can tell their stories, they can take us on the different journeys that they're all going on, and so that they can thrive as we want our whole city. So yeah, look, this is a new committee, and it's got a more focused purpose, and I really thank Mayor Little for pulling this together and giving it this space, and I encourage all the CCO chairs and leaders and even the staff to make contact and with the members of this committee, because we are here to support you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I'd just like to say I'm very moved by the presenters today. Some, of course, are facing a lot more issues and problems with the cost of living than some others, and I think it's incumbent on us to actually do whatever we can to actually help them, to give them the incentives to actually see what we can actually do to help them. So thank you. So I would like to put the motion forward for that, which has been moved and seconded. And there's passed, thank you. All right. I declare the motion passed, sorry. I'd like to now welcome Jamie Crump back to the podium to introduce the report.
Kia ora anō. As with the annual reports, there's much to celebrate with the positive contribution that our CCO whānau provide for Pōneke. Again, happy to take any questions, any pātai.
Do we have any questions? I see none. I'll now move the motion. Who would like to second it? Thank you. Andrea Compton? Yeah. Would you like to speak now? Okay, thank you. Right. No, I think, yeah, I don't need to speak on that anymore. I'll now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Motion is carried. Thank you. Now I would like to ask Jamie to actually introduce the statement of expectations.
Kia ora anō. This report outlines the key messages to be presented to each CCO in a statement of expectation, or SOE. The SOE is designed to assist the CCO with business planning and with the preparation of its statement of intent. The SOE reiterates Council's enduring expectations, including alignment with key Council strategies such as Te Atukura, Tupaki Ora and the Economic Wellbeing Strategy, while also outlining specific expectations for each individual CCO. Attached to the report, you'll find a sample SOE, which is a representative sample of the SOEs that this report will initiate. Happy to take any questions. Kia ora.
Right, thank you. Question, Tony Rand?
Yes, thank you, Jamie. I just wanted to get an understanding in terms of the statements of expectations. Can you just give us a very brief summary about who comes up with it and what understanding in terms of negotiation with the boards these expectations are the result of?
So effectively, the statement expectations are the long term. So what you'll see in there is in terms of those enduring expectations, clearly those are long term. The strategic expectations are very much from our long term plan and our key strategies. So they are the council's core business and strategies. So those are set by council, and then we ask the CCOs to respond in terms of how they are aligning with those key strategies. In terms of the specific expectations, those are drafted by officers, and then those specific expectations, we then have a discussion with we share them with the in the draft form with the CCO, CEOs and chairs, and we get any feedback that they might have on those expectations from them, and then they are inputted into the paper that you see.
Great, thanks. Now, do we have any more questions before we move on to debate? No questions? Okay. Is there any debate on this? Yep, sorry. I will now move the motion. Thank you, Councillor Randall. Would second it. Yep. Okay. Now, is there any debate on this? Councillor Osborne has an amendment, so he will speak first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in terms of the paper as a whole, just before I get to the amendment, I just wanted to briefly note I obviously very comfortable with officers preparing a statement of expectations that set out our enduring expectations and strategic direction. And those two items were obviously presented in the report. I was a little bit concerned perhaps that in terms of the recommendations, we didn't note what those things were ourselves. But I had a good chat with my experienced colleague, Councillor Randall, and he said that we would be wise to leave that discretion with the officers, in which case I was happy to agree except for this one minor amendment. So the amendment itself, you would have all seen it. I've shared it a couple of weeks ago and then shared it again earlier this week. Look, it's no secret that I think Wellington's greatest challenge, and really everyone's greatest challenge, is climate change. And as a result, I'm obviously very supportive of Te Atukura. But we really do have to recognise that if it's really quite a significant ask. And to achieve Te Atukura, it is really going to require massive change in society. It's going to require massive change in households. It's going to require massive change in the public sector, and it's going to require massive change in the private sector. And I think it's really just only right that we as a council who have set this direction are very clear that our businesses, our CCOs, are leading the way in achieving this goal. Because if we're not doing it, why would others do it? I think is probably the point. And it's, and to be clear, I'm very happy to hear that pretty much all our CCOs are doing this work. I don't think this is asking a grand new task of them. And I really want to support that to continue, and I think that this sort of amendment would just make sure that that work does continue. That's really all I want to say about the amendment. Very happy to hear positions from my fellow colleagues.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions of officers now? Councillor Compton? Jamie, do we ask Jamie to come back up?
Yeah. Thank you. I just have a question. It follows along from Councillor Osborne. Are there any CCOs currently not measuring their climate emissions in line with our policy?
All of our CCOs are captured within our WCC greenhouse gas inventory boundaries, so they are all working with our climate action team, working very closely actually with our climate action team. So our climate action team works with them to assess each of their emissions on an annual basis. And work on a reduction plan with them. So they're all doing actually an exemplary job in terms of exemplary examples of low carbon operations. They all have very small footprints, and the zoo, Zealandia, and the cable car in particular are brands that trade on being carbon neutral. So they're doing. What I can say is that all our CCOs are doing an exemplary job in terms of reducing carbon emissions, and they are working closely with our climate action team.
Thank you. Just a supplementary to that. So by putting this inclusion into the statement of expectations, we're not envisaging any real additional work for our CCOs.
No additional work. No.
Right. Thank you. Now a question from, okay. All right. Sorry, Pahu, higher.
Thank you. Just around customers from cruise ships, will this change in terms of the way that's assessed as far as your carbon kind of neutrality is assessed? I'm not sure I made sense there.
I'm not sure that I have the expertise to be able to answer that question.
Perhaps where visitors themselves are not counted in our
the way visitors come
reporting? No, that is not. That will not be captured in this climate reporting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? No. Councillor Osborne, do you have a seconder? Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Great. Thank you. Right. Would you like to speak now?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Just trying to think whether I actually want to say anything. No, thanks.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this amendment? Councillor Randall?
Yes. Look, I appreciate the sentiment Councillor Osborne's put forward in terms of this. I'm afraid I can't support this amendment because I just think it sends the wrong message that this particular council policy is to be prioritised by the CCOs over the other council policies which they are already committed to supporting. And the council alignment of how CCOs support all our policies is already outlined in the statement of expectations and has already been agreed to them. I know it may not make extra work for CCOs, but I'm just concerned it sends the wrong message about what this council is really trying to expect. And I say that for two reasons. First of all, we're still working through the triennium plan. I mean, this is a brand new council, and we haven't settled on where the priority of this particular policy sits amongst all the other priorities. Personally, I'm into transport. I think accessibility is much more important for our CCOs to support than climate change. I would like to see us to being a very walkable, accessible city, and that includes improving the venues for accessibility and that sort of thing. We can have a discussion about that, but we're not there yet. And also, I just think that bringing this in as a specific exemption just to a certain extent, almost an insult to what they're already doing. I mean, we've had, for example, the cable car. I mean, they're already has so much effort that they're down to looking at replacing their petrol-powered water blaster with an electric one. I mean, these people are making exceptional efforts already, And for us to say that we want to do still more or have extra emphasis on this when they're actually struggling to break even, to maintain their viability in some circumstances, I just think it's the wrong message. And so I'd rather just leave the expectations as we go, and maybe further down the path when this council is settled on its policies, that we then maybe reconsider what the statement of expectation should be for this new council. Because for me, this is sort of a business as usual sort of thing. So sorry, I can't support you.
Thank you, Aitiri. Any more speakers? Okay, I'll speak. I'll just. I'm very comfortable with talking about the climate change, and very comfortable with getting the CCOs to actually acknowledge that that climate change is an issue, and that carbon usage is an issue. So very comfortable with that. But I'm also satisfied with their existing responses. Listening to the speakers today, I find that I think of, okay, what are the priorities? And I, especially the last speaker regarding Sky Stadium, I think that they're under a lot of pressure to actually try and sort out the issues of revenue, of the dropping support and sort of meeting their targets, or even getting near their targets. So I think that I would like to look at each of these CCOs and emphasise that we need to improve the customer experience. That's not to say that the customer experience isn't good, but we need to look at different ways of maybe getting more people in to enjoy themselves, and for those people to walk away and go and tell other people what a great experience they've just had. And so we need to have that focus on improving the numbers of people going to these venues. And yes, much has been said about the cruise ship passengers, but really there's nothing we can do to try and get more cruise ship passengers in the meantime. We can try and find more visitors and customers domestically. We can look at different ways of actually finding them, but they do have a hard job. That is the big problem that they have to encounter. So what I guess that I want to emphasise is that I think that this is their biggest issue at the moment, and I don't want to burden them with putting more resource into seeing that this is actually a major criteria that we actually have that we want them to do. We want them to focus on. Yes, they're already doing it. If they weren't doing it, then yes, it becomes an issue. So that is what I think that we should actually try and get them to focus on. And I don't want them to think that the first major priority should be looking at how they can actually do better on what they're doing with climate change now, because I do believe that they are actually doing the best that they can. Sorry, question from. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. You have a question?
No, to speak.
Oh, coin. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Chung, and Chairman. So what I'd like to sort of talk about is that I've seconded the amendment. I'm also in support of it because it doesn't burden the CCOs with further work. It doesn't send the wrong message that this is their number one priority. As a matter of fact, if we look at the amendment, we can see the word direction, and it is only directing CCOs to make sure that they continue doing the incredible work that we don't want to take away from. So I absolutely acknowledge that they already are doing that, and I'm very, very impressed that they are doing such an amazing job. Perhaps that wasn't outlined in a statement of expectations, but for that to just be in our statement of expectations, it actually sends the right message that this council does look after the environment and does take that into consideration without burdening CCOs further. It is not extra work, it is not extra, monetary investment into that space, it is just a direction, and it is up to the CCO's discretion on how they implement their direction and come to it. So I'm very much in support of the amendment. That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Toki, were you higher?
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Councillor Al-Rubayi, and just want to say, I think we've heard it won't impose extra burden on the CCOs, but it does send an important message. I think climate change is different in that it's an existential issue for us, so we need to kind of call it out in some way, and I think we're doing that in an appropriate way in this case. So I'll be supporting the amendment.
Great, thank you. Councillor Osborne, would you like a right of reply? Great, thank you. Right, shall we, this motion has now been moved and seconded, so we'd like to vote on it. Those in favour, press 1. Those opposed, press 2. The motion has passed. Thank you. Been carried. Right, thank you.
Go back to the substantive now.
Oh, okay. Okay, so now we'll return to the substantive. Now, is there any more debate on this? No debate? Okay. Okay. If there's no more debate, I would now like to put this motion, which is moved and seconded. You second? Okay. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, press 2. This motion has been carried. Now I have the decision register and upcoming reports. Okay, we'll take the report as read. Does anyone have any questions on this? I will now move the motion. Who would like to second it? Councillor Compton. Do you wish to speak now? No. Okay, is there any debate? No debate? All right. Okay, I will now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. The motion has been carried. Thank you. Right. I also recommend that the public is excluded from the following part of the proceedings of this meeting, the reasons for which are on the screen before you. I will move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Is there any debate? No debate. I'll now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, press 2. Thank you. That has been carried. We will now pause the live stream to give democracy servers a couple of minutes to clear the room. Okay. Having completed all our business, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you for your contributions. Let's close with the karakia.
Unahia, ki te uratapa nui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tīnana, te wairoa, e te ara takatū. Koira e rongo, whakairea e ki runga, kia wātia, ai rā, kua wātia.